Chapter 61. Sand Village vs. Rain Village. Hanzo did not give Cho a chance to use his mouth. His chakra burst out instantly and he rushed towards the Sand Village troops. The Kirigakure ninjas behind him saw their leader charging ahead, and they all followed Hanzo's footsteps and shouted as they began to charge. Seeing that Hanzo not only did not respond to her, but also attacked her without any moral ethics, Chiyo's face turned dark. She handed over the command of the troops to her younger brother Ebizo, and then rushed towards Hanzo. While running, Cho had no intention of trying and directly summoned her most powerful puppet. Cho hooked her fingers together and used the chakra thread to take out a purple sealing scroll from her ninja tool bag. He manipulated the chakra lines to spread the scroll in the air, and while running, he formed a seal with one hand to release the seal on the scroll. White Secret Technique, Chikamatsu 10 People. The words engraved on the scroll kept flying out, transforming into various shapes of ghosts, and then turned into 10 white-clothed puppets of different shapes floating beside Cho, following her and rushing towards Hanzo. On the other side, Hanzo began to form seals with his hands while charging. The weather in the rain country provided him with great convenience at this time. Water Style, Black Rain Technique. The black oil mixed with the rain and fell in Chiyo's direction. Cho, who was familiar with the ninjutsu of the hidden rain village, instantly saw through the essence of this technique, but she had no intention of dodging at all. With a slight movement of her fingers, she manipulated the puppets beside her to form an airtight defensive formation, ready to withstand Hanzo's next attack. Hanzo continued to use the Indian style, launching the next wave of attacks, and chakra continued to gather in his mouth. Fire Release, Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Dense fireballs continuously came out of Hanzo's mouth and attacked Cho. Although it is only a sea-level fire release, its power when used by Hanzo, a strong man who is close to the limit of cage level, has surpassed ordinary B-level ninjutsu. If it can be combined with the Black Rain technique just now, it will be enough to unleash a power comparable to A-level ninjutsu. Cho, who knew clearly that the essence of the Black Rain technique was actually to cooperate with the fire style to cause unexpected damage, saw Hanzo attacking with the Phoenix fire style, which had a very wide coverage, and decisively deployed her defense. Puppet Technique Machine Light Shield. Chiyo's chakra poured into the Chikamatsu 10, who had already formed a defensive formation, through the chakra lines. Using puppets as a medium, they formed a huge chakra shield, blocking all of Hanzo's attacks. But at the same time, Chiyo's forward step stopped because she was trying to resist Hanzo's attack. Hanzo was very fast, and by the time Cho was using her defense, the distance between the two was less than 50 meters. Hanzo's chakra exploded further, instantly increasing his speed to a higher level. At the same time, he reached out and pulled out the sickle with a chain behind him and jumped high. A flash of knife light passed by, and it streaked across the sky like a meteor, and the blade pointed directly at Cho, who was protected behind the puppet. Swordsmanship, IAI/. Cho, who had no time to dodge, was instantly cut into two by Hanzo. However, there was no joy on Hanzo's face. When the sickle passed through Chiyo's body, Hanzo, who was born as a samurai and a master of swordsmanship, knew that he had missed because he felt something was wrong. Sure enough, Cho appeared on the other side. It turned out that Cho had already used her sand clone to replace her real body while the puppet blocked Hanzo's sight. It was only her sand clone that was cut into two. Having missed the attack, Hanzo turned around and threw the chain in his left hand towards Cho. Chiyo's 10 fingers slid quickly in the air, and the chakra lines that were almost invisible to the naked eye quickly reconnected with the Chikamatsu 10, who had just lost control because of the use of sand clones to replace their original bodies, and manipulated them to block in front of him again. The rapidly coming chains tightly bound up a puppet with yellow horns on its head that was blocking the front. Hanzo didn't care when he saw that the chains didn't hit Cho, as he thought it would be better to destroy 1/10 of her combat power first. Sword Technique, Chain Scythe Double Attack. Hanzo pulled the chain towards him hard, and at the same time, under the influence of chakra, he leaped forward, and the sickle in his right hand chopped down fiercely from top to bottom in the air. At the last moment before being hit, Cho barely controlled the puppet to deviate a little, and the sharp sickle slashed across the puppet's body, cutting off the puppet's right arm without any hindrance, and at the same time cutting off the chakra line connected to the puppet. Without caring about her distress, Cho hurriedly controlled the other puppets to snatch it back. From the broken right arm of the puppet, the dark purple poison continued to spread to other parts of the puppet and continued to corrode the puppet's body. The intelligence is correct. Hanzo's sickle does have his poison. Cho thought, and then carefully extracted a little of the poison and began to analyze it. Then the next step is to delay him as much as possible until the poison is analyzed. This puppet-playing woman is really troublesome. She really deserves to be the flower of ninja of Sand Village. Hanzo murmured after several attacks failed to achieve much effect. At this time, the main force of Kirigakure had already met the force of Kirigakure, and the two sides started a fierce battle. I wish you all a happy Dragon Boat Festival and all the best in advance. Chapter 62. Ebizo was another cage-level fighter of Sand Village. Although he was only a relatively weak cage, he still relied on his skilled puppetry to control 5 puppets. He was able to hold down 3 elite jonin of Rain Village by himself, while still having enough energy to support others from time to time. The battle situation was temporarily deadlocked. Looking around the battlefield, Cho saw that the Kirigakure ninjas, led by Ebizo, temporarily blocked the attack of Omegakure. She felt relieved. After all, judging from the number of people alone, Omegakure had simply crushed the Kirigakure ninjas. But the quality of the ninjas of the great country is there. The sand ninjas of the same level are almost suppressing the Omegakure ninjas, and there are even many sand ninjas fighting 1-on-2 or 1-on-3. Reassured, Cho was ready to take the initiative to attack. She moved the 5 fingers of her right hand slightly, and a blue-faced puppet, a horse-faced puppet and a red-haired female puppet rushed out at the same time and quickly surrounded Hanzo. Puppet technique attack. The female puppet wielded 2 large swords and slashed at Hanzo. Hanzo swung the chains, entangled the 2 swords, blocked the attack, and then counterattacked with a sickle to slash at the female puppet. But Hanzo was facing Chiyo's 3 puppets. The blue-faced puppet at the side stretched out 2 iron whips from its head, blocking Hanzo's attack. Then, under Chiyo's control, it spun its body and extended the iron whips again, continuously entangling and whipping Hanzo. Puppet art binding. Seeing that Hanzo was trapped for a while, the horse-faced puppet that had been waiting for a long time opened its mouth under Chiyo's control, and a chakra cannonball hit Hanzo in the face. Boom! Violent explosions resounded throughout the battlefield, and the ninjutsu in the hands of the Sand Village and Rain Village ninjas who were fighting each other paused for a moment. There was thick smoke at the location of the explosion. Chiyo's combo was very powerful. A moment later, Hanzo rushed out of the smoke and dust, covered in dust, but uninjured. The law of no injuries in smoke was once again in effect. After completing a series of attacks, Cho did not pursue the victory, but withdrew the 3 puppets and continued to block in front of her. After all, she was still distracted analyzing Hanzo's salamander poison, and now she just had to delay Hanzo. But what Cho didn't notice was that when she withdrew the puppet, a smile quietly appeared at the corner of Hanzo's mouth. Just as the female puppet was about to return to Cho, Hanzo calculated the time and formed the Mi seal with his hands. Fire release, exploding flame array. As Hanzo formed hand seals, a large number of detonating tags lit up on the female puppet's body, and then exploded with a loud bang. Cho was caught off guard and this time she didn't have time to control the puppet to use the mechanical light shield. She was hit directly by Hanzo's attack and was blown away. Fortunately, Cho was smart enough, and fortunately, she was also a powerful medical ninja. At the moment before the explosion, she immediately covered the surface of her body with a large amount of medical chakra, and began to heal before the explosion came, reducing the damage caused by the explosion to the minimum. Otherwise, she would lose her combat effectiveness at this moment. How could the ruthless Hanzo let go of the fighting opportunity he had created with great difficulty at the risk of getting injured? His hands were constantly moving, and one seal after another quickly passed through his hands. Water release, great waterfall technique. With the help of the abundant water vapor in the air on a rainy day, Hanzo jumped high and easily used this A-level water escape technique. A large amount of chakra continued to gather in the throat, and then Hanzo spewed a huge amount of water from high altitude towards the place where Cho was blown away. The water extracted from chakra, under Hanzo's control, rushed towards Cho. Cho did not sit still and wait for death. She moved her 10 fingers together, and the remaining 8 puppets that were still able to fight quickly returned to her side. Although Cho had not completely healed her injuries, facing the fierce A-level water escape, she had to stop healing herself and defend herself with all her strength. Puppet technique machine light shield. This time, not only the puppet, but Cho herself also used defense. An unusually large chakra shield perfectly defended against the great waterfall technique, but the impact force was not completely removed. Cho spat out blood again under this huge impact force. Water escape water instant. Hanzo landed on the ground without any pause. He took advantage of the convenient terrain and instantly appeared between Cho and her puppets. How could Cho, who had been taught a lesson by Hanzo's combination of punches, tolerate Hanzo? If you dare to fight me in close combat, I will control the puppets to attack you. 8 against 1, the advantage is on me. But Hanzo was not afraid at all. Facing the siege of puppets, he dodged all attacks as easily as falling flowers and leaves. He waved the chain with his left hand and swept the sickle with his right hand. Besieged by 8 puppets, Hanzo showed the demeanor of a master of physical skills. The puppet could not stop Hanzo's progress. He kept approaching Chiyo's position, and at the same time he was looking for a perfect opportunity to kill Cho with one blow. Suddenly, Hanzo discovered that Cho had a flaw when controlling the puppets. Although the puppets were still besieging him, there was no obstacle between him and Cho at this moment. Chapter 63. So Hanzo made a prompt decision and a surge of chakra burst out instantly. The puppets were paused for a moment by the impact of Hanzo's sudden burst of chakra. Then Hanzo turned into a stream of light and rushed towards Chiyo's position. Swordsmanship, IAI/. When Cho saw Hanzo coming to kill her in an instant, she was not at all flustered. Instead, she showed a perfect smile and then formed seals with her hands. Just when Hanzo's sickle was about to kill Cho, a circle of mysterious spells suddenly lit up on the ground in front of Cho, where Hanzo was at this time. A white lion with a bloody mouth opened wide emerged from the ground, holding Hanzo firmly in place and sealing most of his chakra. Sealing technique, Lion's Roar. It turned out that Cho had secretly carved the sealing ritual in front of her, waiting for Hanzo to bypass the puppet and behead her directly. Of course, she deliberately exposed the flaw just now to Hanzo. In fact, Hanzo knew that he was fooled when he saw Chiyo's smile, but the distance was too close, and he had exploded almost all of his chakra in pursuit of a one-hit kill. Even if he was a grandmaster of swordsmanship, he could not forcibly interrupt his attack at this time. It's over. Seeing that the plan worked, Cho immediately controlled the puppets to kill Hanzo. A slightly fat puppet holding the double swords of the female puppet and another red-faced puppet holding a chain attacked Hanzo at the same time. But Hanzo is, after all, a demigod who is close to the limit of cage. The sealing technique that Cho hastily set up was not perfect. She was unable to control him for too long and could not completely seal his chakra. Under the attack at all costs, the seal was quickly broken by Hanzo. At the moment before the puppet's attack was about to happen, Hanzo successfully used the instant body movement technique to escape. Although he was not killed on the spot, Hanzo was still injured. The red-haired female puppet's sword cut Hanzo's right cheek and also left a deep wound on Hanzo's right shoulder where the bone could be seen. Hanzo was furious. He endured the severe pain and formed seals with both hands. Then he wiped the blood on his face with his left thumb and launched a ninjutsu. Psychic art. A huge amount of white smoke dissipated, and the huge salamander Ibu appeared at Hanzo's feet. Hanzo was originally worried that the poison gas of the salamander would be restrained by the wind style of the Sand Village ninjas, and he was confident that he could first deal with the top combat power of the Sand Village in a short period of time and then summon the salamander to massacre the Sand Village ninjas. Seeing that he couldn't defeat Cho in the short term, and coupled with the anger from his injury, Hanzo no longer cared about these things. IFU. Hanzo shouted while standing on top of the salamander IFU. There was no need for Hanzo to say much, as the salamander, who cooperated well with Hanzo, knew what he wanted to do. Inobu opened his big mouth, and the thick purple poison gas that had been stored in advance quickly spread toward the battlefield. When the rain-hidden ninjas saw the salamander Inobu appear, they began to withdraw from the battle one after another. Although they all wore respirators, they would still be corroded by the poison gas over time. Cho didn't care about Hanzo anymore and quickly came to the front of the Sand Village. She couldn't let the poison spread. Although most of the Sand Village ninjas used various wind escape techniques, some of them were still infected. Cho, who hadn't yet completely analyzed the poison of the salamander, didn't have enough confidence to help them detoxify. Cho controlled the two puppets and came to the front, then formed the tiger seal with both hands. As Chiyo's seal fell, the two puppets with red and blue painted on their faces also formed seals synchronously, making the tiger seal. Then, under Chiyo's control, a white-haired puppet landed steadily on the shoulders of the red and blue puppets, also forming the tiger seal. The three puppets formed a triangle formation in the shape of a finished product, and then opened their mouths under Chiyo's control, revealing three mechanisms of Buddha, Dharma, and Monk. Puppet technique: 3 treasures absorb and collapse. A violent tornado with strong suction force was generated from the three puppets. The poisonous gas spreading on the battlefield was constantly absorbed into the middle of the formation, and then slowly and completely compressed in the middle of the formation. Cho signaled her younger brother Ebizo to take over the control of the puppet. Without finding a way to detoxify, the poison gas must not be allowed to spread again. On the other side, Hanzo, who was seriously injured, had already retreated with the Rain Village ninjas. This decisive battle did not achieve the set goal. Although the final battlefield killer, the salamander poison gas, successfully poisoned a large number of Sand Village ninjas, his injuries no longer allowed him to continue fighting. Moreover, Chiyo's puppet also contains a tough toxin. Although the salamander poison sac in his body gives him a very high resistance to poison and is not life-threatening, the mixed toxin developed by Cho still makes him very uncomfortable and his combat effectiveness is greatly reduced. The war ended abruptly like this. But neither Hanzo nor Cho would be willing to accept such a result. Hanzo still wanted to defeat Tsunagakure in one fell swoop and then concentrate all the ninjas of Rainagakure to deal with Konoha. After all, there is not much profit on the Tsunagakure side. Cho, on the other hand, was thinking about how to detoxify Hanzo's salamander poison as soon as possible, and then lead Tsunagakure to victory in the war with Omegakure. Chapter 64. The 7 ninja swordsmen serve as the shadow guards of the 3rd Mizu Cage Bing. According to Bing's request, they will each be stationed in the Mizu Cage building 1 day a week, and the rest will stay in the Anbu base. The one on duty in the Mizukage's office today is Zigwashin Pufferfish Demon. Kyoji is leading the rest of the ninja swordsmen to train in the Anbu base as usual. Suddenly, an Anbu appeared near Kingxi and his companions, knelt on one knee, and said to Kingxi, "Sir, the Mizu Cage has an urgent message." Kingxi understood in his heart that it seemed that there was a mission. He had just talked with the 3rd Mizu Cage Bing a few days ago about preparing to lead a team to carry out the mission. Lord Mizu Cage requires you to lead the other lords to station number 6 outside the village immediately. Kingxi was shocked at this time. Number 6 station, isn't that where the 6 tails Jinchuriki is? It seems that the seal of the Jinchuriki can't hold up. Understanding the seriousness of the matter, CG immediately led the rest of the 7 ninja swordsmen to rush to base number 6 outside the village. On the way, they met the Zigwashin Pufferfish Ghost who was also rushing to station number 6 from the Mizu Cage building. "Sir. There were accidents at both Station 3 and Station 6. Sir Sandai has already gone to Station 3 to deal with it." Zigwashin Puffer Ghost reported the current situation to Kingxi. "Sir Sandai asked me to convey that our mission is to delay the other party and wait for Sir Sandai to arrive." At this time, the Zigwashin Puffer Ghost and the others did not know what they were about to face. They simply thought it was an urgent mission of foreign invasion. There was even a hint of excitement in their hearts. As the ace force of the Hidden Mist village, they had been training quietly in the village for so long. Today was the day for the 7 ninja swordsmen to become famous. After listening to the narration of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, Kingxi felt heavy in his heart. This was because the 3-tailed Jinchuriki and the 6-tailed Jinchuriki went berserk at the same time. At the same time, he also understood what Bing meant. It seems that the 7 ninja swordsmen who are going out for the first time will have to go through a tough battle. If it was just a matter of killing the runaway 6-tails Jinchuriki, then Kyoji was confident that he could do it alone since he was now proficient in controlling the twin swords, Aoi, and even several other ninja swords and could exert the strength of a cage. After all, in his memory, the 6-tails was not a very powerful tailed beast. But here's the trouble. If the 6-tails Jinchuriki is killed, the 6-tails will also disappear, and then be resurrected somewhere in the ninja world a few years later. At that time, whether the 6-tails can still belong to Kirigakure will be a question mark. Moreover, more importantly, none of them have the ability to seal the tailed beasts, so the task of Kingji and his companions is only to suppress and delay the 6-tails Jinchuriki who has fallen into a runaway state, and wait for the 3rd Mizu Cage who has the ability to seal and subsequent support to arrive, and reseal the 6-tails. At base number 3, when the 3rd Mizu Cage Bing arrived, the place was already a river of blood, with collapsed houses everywhere and the corpses of the Anbu stationed there scattered all over the ground. Bing didn't have time to mourn for the sacrificed Anbu. His first priority was to stop the runaway Jinchuriki from continuing to wreak havoc. The 3-tails Jinchuriki has been deeply affected by the brutality and hatred contained in the 3-tails chakra. The Jinchuriki had long lost his consciousness and has entered a half-tailed beast state from the tailed beast cloak. The dark red-tailed beast chakra completely wraps around his body, and his form is like a wild beast, crawling on all fours. Seeing Bing coming, the Three Tails Jinchuriki instinctively felt a sense of threat and opened his mouth to enlarge. The red chakra of the Yang attribute and the blue chakra of the Yin attribute quickly gathered at the mouth, and were constantly mixed and compressed to form a purple-black high-density chakra ball, and then aimed at the location of the ice and fired. Tailed Beast Jade. Bing, who had fought with the tailed beasts many times before, showed no change in expression as he calmly formed seals with his hands. Ice release, ice crystal wall. A thick wall of ice rose from the ground, blocking the path of the tailed beast ball. Boom! The tailed beast ball hit the ice wall, making a loud roar. Then what should follow is close combat. Bing recalled the processes of fighting with the runaway Jinchuriki who had entered the half-tailed beast state, and then continued to form hand seals slowly. Ice escape, ice sword. A huge white ice sword made of highly condensed ice chakra appeared in Bing's hand. Bing grasped the hilt of the sword with his right hand and spread out his left hand to hold the sword body, just blocking the attacking dark red chakra tail. He blocked the attack with ice, released his left hand that was holding the sword, and rotated the ice sword in his hand, then used an upward thrust to fiercely knock the tail away. Wherever the ice sword hit, solid ice continued to spread along its tail toward the Jinchuriki, and the runaway Jinchuriki couldn't help but pause. Bing took this opportunity to thrust the ice sword into the ground, and then began to form a seal. Where the ice sword was thrust, a large amount of solid ice began to emerge and then spread out in all directions. When the Three Tails Jinchuriki broke free from control and rushed towards Bing again, Bing's ninjutsu was ready. Ice release magic mirror ice crystal. The figure of Bing disappeared from the spot in an instant, and 8 huge ice mirrors trapped the Jinchuriki in the middle. With the help of the ice mirror, he achieved super high-speed movement, thus achieving an effect that was almost like instant movement in space-time ninjutsu. Ice continuously attacked the Three Tails Jinchuriki in the middle. Ice escape, ice palm. Every palm strike would leave a mark of ice on the Jinchuriki's body, which would then quickly spread across his body surface, with the ice chakra and the Three Tails chakra constantly fighting on his body surface. After all, it was a wild beast without independent consciousness. Slowly, under the influence of the continuous ice chakra, the Jinchuriki's movements became slower and slower, and he was finally completely frozen in place. Chapter 65. Seeing that the three-tailed Jinchuriki was frozen, Bing stopped attacking and prepared to step forward to cast a seal to release the Jinchuriki from his half-tailed beast state. At this moment, in his perception, the chakra aura of the Three Tails Jinchuriki that had been frozen was rapidly expanding like a flame that was about to explode. Not good. Bing's face changed. This is it. The three-tailed beast is coming out. He thought that the situation here could be resolved quickly without having to face the ice of the tailed beast's true body, but he secretly groaned. After all, there was a runaway Six Tails Jinchuriki waiting for him to deal with at station number 6 on the other side. Everyone retreat. Go back to the village and inform Elder Chinyu to come immediately with the sealing equipment. Bing gave orders to the surviving Anbu who were recovering in the rear, and at the same time he quickly retreated. Bing is not very proficient in sealing techniques, so he can seal a Jinchuriki who has transformed into a tailed beast and cannot resist. However, he is stretched to his limits when facing the three tails that has completely transformed into a tailed beast. Therefore, he needs the assistance of another elder in the village, Haruami, who can use sealing techniques. Besides, the original Three Tails Jinchuriki was already almost unable to hold on, and his life was almost coming to an end after fully transforming into a tailed beast. In this situation, many of Bing's powerful moves could not be used at will, for fear that he would accidentally kill both the tailed beast and the Jinchuriki. Therefore, Bing needs to seal the three tails back into the Jinchuriki's body first, then extract the three tails from the Jinchuriki's body, and then seal it in a sealing device together with Elder Haru's aim. This is how a runaway Jinchuriki who has completely transformed into a tailed beast should be handled. If you have other opinions, please leave a message. Crack. Crack. Crack, crack, crack. Intensive cracking sounds were heard, and dense cracks appeared on the surface of the solid ice that imprisoned the Jinchuriki, and then it shattered with a loud bang. A huge turtle with thorns all over its body and three tails appeared. 3 tails. Bing muttered to himself as he looked at the giant turtle. Because the other Enbu had already retreated, the three tails single eye, which was full of tyranny, swept across and saw the extremely small ice compared to its size. The three tails appeared because the Jinchuriki went berserk and his body was constantly eroded by the tailed beast's chakra, thus entering a state of complete transformation into a tailed beast. Therefore, the three tails now has no Jinchuriki's control and its actions rely more on its instincts. The memory of being beaten and sealed by ice storms many times has been deeply engraved in its chakra, so when it sees ice, it becomes more manic. The three-tailed beast opened its mouth wide and a high-pressure water column compressed to the extreme rushed straight towards Bing. Bing, who had fought against the three tails many times, was already quite familiar with the three tails attack pattern. He stood with one hand in front of his chest and immediately activated the instant body technique to avoid the three tails attack. The three tails, whose attack had failed, became more and more violent. Inside its huge body, the chakra began to become restless and boil. It opened its mouth again, and huge amounts of water continued to pour out of it. It wanted to create a comfortable environment and a suitable battlefield for itself. Water release, big explosive water wave. The water-based ninjutsu performed by the three tails, who is proficient in water-based ninjutsu, is on a much larger scale than those used by ninjas. The three-tailed beast created a huge lake out of thin air in the waterless environment, and base number 3 was now completely ruined. Ice escape ice age. At the same time when the three tails launched the ninjutsu on the ice side was also ready, which was the A-level ice age. The three-tailed fox not only creates a suitable combat environment for itself, but also for ice. The lake water became the best assist for the spread of ice chakra. With the help of the conduction of the lake water, the three-tailed beast was instantly frozen. Knowing that this trick could not trap the three tails for too long, Bing continued to quickly form hand seals without changing his expression. He needed to use a ninjutsu with stronger control. The three-tailed beast, frozen in the ice again, began to struggle violently, and cracks continued to appear inside the ice that wrapped around it. Ow! Broken ice chips flew all over the sky. Sanwei broke free from the ice and howled angrily to the sky. Then the huge head raised slightly, opened its big mouth, and the yin and yang chakra quickly gathered. This time it was the tailed beast ball used by the complete three tails. On the other side, Bing also finished his long and complicated seal-making process. For a powerful shadow-level warrior to be able to seal for such a long time, it can be imagined that its level and power must be above S level. Tailed Beast Jade. Ice Escape, Absolute Zero. The gigantic tailed beast ball was dozens of times larger than the one used in the tailed beast transformation state just now. It carried an aura of destruction and was launched unstoppably towards Bing's position by the three tail. Looking at Bing on the other hand, compared to the situation of the tailed beast ball, it was really silent. As the last seal fell, the temperature around the ice crystal began to drop sharply with Bing as the center. Pieces of ice crystals spread rapidly and silently towards the direction of the three-tailed beast, starting from him, and even the air seemed to be frozen. The flying-tailed beast ball encountered the spreading ice crystals and was instantly frozen without causing any ripples. Then, under the influence of the ice chakra, it exploded in the air with a loud bang. The violent explosion sounded from far away, but it was in vain. However, the explosion of the tailed beast ball did not stop the ice crystals from continuing to spread. Soon, the three tails in the distance followed the same fate as the tailed beast ball and turned into a large ice-sculptured turtle. At this time, the long-lost sunshine appeared in the sky. The three-tailed ice sculpture sparkled under the sunlight, emitting charming light and a unique beauty. Chapter 66. Hey! Bing let out a long breath and finally controlled the runaway three tails. The next step is to wait for Elder Chinyu to arrive and temporarily seal it in a sealing device, and then go to support the six tails. On the other side, when the third Mizukage Bing was fighting the three tails, Kingji and others also rushed to base number 6, and ran into the six tails Jinchuriki, who was on a killing spree and had already transformed into a half-tailed beast. Zigwa Mountain! Kingxi shouted when he saw the brutal battle not far away. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost, who had served under Kingxi for a long time, did not need Kingxi to say much and instantly understood what his captain meant. Chakra then exploded, speeding up his pace, and he quickly rushed into the battlefield while breaking away from the team, quickly forming seals with his hands. Water release exploding water wave. The surging wave swept the rampaging six tails Jinchuriki far away, and also gave the hard-fought Anbu a chance to catch their breath. The remaining Anbu who were struggling to hold on could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when they saw the reinforcements coming. Although the Anbu stationed here were all elite teams, facing the Jinchuriki who had entered a rampage state and had already transformed into a half-tailed beast, it was still a one-sided massacre. In a short period of time, the three Anbu teams stationed at the number 3 station lost half of their manpower. At this time, Kingxi and the remaining few people also came to the side of the Zigwashan Puffer Ghost. "You guys retreat, leave this to us." Looking at the Anbu members who were almost all injured, Kingxi gave the order with a hint of sadness. Yes. Please take care, everyone. The only surviving Anbyo captain answered with difficulty after taking a deep breath, and then led the rest of the people to retreat towards the village with each other's support. The Jinchuriki, whose killing was interrupted by the explosive water wave, fell into an even more violent state, roared in anger, and then rushed towards Kingji and others at an extremely fast speed. Captain! Is this the Six Tails Jinchuriki? Several people who haven't figured out the situation couldn't help but ask, with a slight tremor in their tone. After all, this is the tailed beast that is known as a natural disaster in the ninja world. Although they didn't know much about the tailed beasts and the Jinchuriki, they were able to recognize them at a glance by the 6 bright dark red chakra tails behind them. Although they usually claim to be the elites of the Hidden Mist village, they are not yet at the peak of their strength and are still a little intimidated and fearful when facing the tailed beasts. That's right. This is the runaway 6 Tails Jinchuriki, and the one that the third Sama is going to deal with is the 3 Tails Jinchuriki. CG answered calmly. He had no fear of the tailed beasts at all. Mission objective: hold back the runaway Jinchuriki until the third Hokage arrives. Get ready. Kingji quickly gave the order and began to form seals with both hands. The 6 Tails Jinchuriki was already within reach. After hearing Kingxi's order, the other 6 people recovered from their anxiety about facing the tailed beasts in their first mission and prepared to fight. The irrational 6 Tails Jinchuriki had no method for attacking, and his main attack was to rush forward, raise his hand and punch Kingxi, who was standing in the front. At this time, Kingxi's ninjutsu was ready. With the help of the terrain created by the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, the surging water swept towards the oncoming 6 Tails Jinchuriki, causing it to be swept back. Water escape, water chaos. The 7 ninja swordsmen, who were fighting in a team for the first time, showed their tacit cooperation with each other. Seeing that the 6 Tails Jinchuriki was temporarily controlled by Seiji's water escape, Sato Kage immediately crossed the thunder swords in both hands. Thunder Blade Ninjutsu, Thunder Fang. With the help of the Thunder Blade Fang, Sato Kage Shun used a lightning release ninjutsu to gain control, then raised the 2 swords crosswise over his head and chopped them down fiercely. Thunder Blade Ninjutsu, Thunder Fall. The successive lightning techniques, coordinated with water techniques, caused the 6 Tails Jinchuriki to fall into a state of temporary paralysis. Beautiful! Kingxi said in his heart, and his next ninjutsu was ready. He put his hands together and a stream of high-pressure water came out of Kingxi's mouth. Water release, water breaking wave. Under the control of Kingxi, the extremely compressed high-pressure water flow shot towards the 6-tailed Jinchuriki, directly penetrating his shoulder. The 6-tailed Jinchuriki became even more irritable in pain, and the tailed beast chakra continued to surge, quickly healing the injured area. Normally, with the power of the water-severing wave performed by Kingji, if it hit the vital point, it should be enough to seriously injure or kill the opponent, but after all, the 6 Tails is the precious property of the Hidden Mist village, and the mission of Kingji and his men is only to suppress and delay the 6 Tails Jinchuriki, so Kingji's fighting was a little restrained. At this time, Zigwashan Pufferfish Demon, Biwajozo, Tongkusa Yebaran, Kurishan Kushimaru, and Wolijin Hachigo were stepping on the puddles on the ground and were approaching the 6-tailed Jinchuriki, who was still in a paralyzed state. Mori Shinpeki, who was in the front, took the lead in attacking, waving the Bakuto Fiamo in his hand and slashed heavily at the 6 Tails Jinchuriki. Kurishai Kushimaru followed closely behind and swung out the long sword sewing needle in his hand. The blade of the explosive sword hit the 6 Tails Jinchuriki hard, but did not break his defense. Mori Jinpachi immediately turned the blade over, aimed the other side of the blade at the 6 Tails Jinchuriki, and then detonated it. Boom! The violent explosion stirred up a cloud of thick smoke, and at this time, Needle's attack also arrived, piercing through the heavy smoke and stabbing at the 6 Tails Jinchuriki. Ding! A crisp sound came from the smoke. Kurishan Kushimaru's face changed and he quickly took back the needle. The long knife and needle, which was said to be able to pierce through everything and sew it up, couldn't even break the defense. Chapter 67. It's so hard. I don't get off work until 9:30 or almost 10 o'clock. It's so hard for workers. Kurishagashimura fell behind Wolijinpachi a little because of the surprise, which really screwed Wolijinpachi over. They agreed to fight together, but you actually sold out your teammates. The 6 Tails Jinchuriki, who was bombarded with continuous ninjutsu, finally broke free from control. The 6 Tails were flying wildly behind him, making Mori Shinpeki, who had just attacked closely, very embarrassed. Help! 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 At this time, facing the attack of the Six Tails Jinchuriki alone and in a miserable state, Mori Shinpeki uttered a series of rapid calls for help. Water release, water, water whip. Tokusa Noito, who was also charging but fell behind, took action. A soft water whip wrapped around Mori Jinpachi's waist and pulled him back. He then joined Biwajozo and Zigwashin Pufferfish. The four of them rushed forward together and besieged the Six Tails Jinchuriki. Since Zigwashin Pufferfish holds the large sword Samehada that can absorb chakra, he is the one responsible for the main attack among the four. Samehada waved up and down in his hand, continuously slashing at the six-tailed Jinchuriki. Each slash could take away some of the six-tailed Jinchuriki's chakra on the surface of the body. This made Samehada very happy. After all, this normal state of the tailed beast chakra was very delicious to it. As for Kurisan Kushimaru, knowing that he had inadvertently let down his good friend, he hurried to make amends. After testing, he found that his attack could not break the defense of the Six Tails Jinchuriki, so he turned to concentrate on assisting, and under his delicate control, Stitch continued to harass the Six Tails Jinchuriki. After a while, Kurishan Kushimaru used the steel wire of a sewing needle to tightly bind the tails of the Six Tails Jinchuriki. The thin but extremely hard steel wire prevented it from breaking free the first time it was controlled. Seeing this opportunity, Tokusa Nobito raised his sword and chopped at the six-tailed Jinchuriki, then swung the huge hammer in his left hand and smashed it hard on the back of the sword. The beast's fighting instinct made the Six Tails Jinchuriki feel the crisis, and he quickly changed his form. The dark red chakra instantly turned blue-purple, and the nature of the chakra also changed accordingly. The chakra with highly corrosive properties dissolved a small part of the steel wire of the stitches in the blink of an eye, and the control was released. Kurisan Kushimaru was extremely distressed. His ninja sword was partially damaged during his first mission. He was afraid that he would suffer a lot after returning to the village after the mission. The Six Tails Jinchuriki, who had broken free from his restraints, opened his mouth and fired a shot of strong acid at the Tokusa Nobito who was holding a blunt knife in front of him. Fortunately, the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost was quick-eyed and quick-handed, and used Samehada to cut off most of the chakra contained in the acid, leaving the Tokusa Nobito with only minor injuries. Otherwise, with this intensity that is comparable to or even stronger than boiling release, Tokusa Nobito might become the first of the 7 ninja swordsmen to die, dying before he can accomplish his mission. However, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost was not in a better condition. The highly corrosive chakra made Samehada shiver in pain. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost tried his best but failed to calm Samehada, who fell into autism after eating a mouthful of sulfuric acid. The Six Tails Jinchuriki swung his fist and hit the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon with his arms wide open. As expected, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon was knocked away, and his chest was sunken. At this time, Samehada, who had finally recovered, hurriedly transferred chakra to the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon to treat him. However, Kurisan Kushimaru finally took advantage of this opportunity to complete the move he had been preparing for a long time. He put his hands together, forming the SI seal, and shouted, Shinpeki! Tokusa Noito, Biwajozo, and Murasaka Shinpeki, who were still fighting with the Six Tails Jinchuriki, heard Kurishai Kushimaru's shout. They had been training together for a while and instantly understood what he meant, so they quickly began to retreat. Seeing that several people had evacuated, Kurishan Kushimaru grabbed the remaining steel wire of the sewing needle and pulled it hard. The transparent sewing needle thread emerged from the ground in a chessboard shape and covered the surroundings of the Six Tails Jinchuriki. Long Sword Ninja Technique, Earth Spider Seam. Although it is not possible to use the original purpose of cutting off the legs by interlacing horizontal and vertical lines, it is still possible to restrict and slow down the actions of the Six Tails Jinchuriki. Mori Shinpeki, who had retreated to the side of Kurishai Kushimaru at this time, swung the Bakuto Hibu in his hand vigorously towards the position of the Six Tails Jinchuriki, and a long scroll full of explosive tags flew out of the Bakuto. The Explosive Sword Ninja Technique, Fatal Death. The scroll surrounded the Six Tails Jinchuriki, who had slowed down tightly and then exploded with a loud bang. Kurishai Kushimaru looked at the powerful combination of himself and Murasaka Shinpeki and couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile on his face behind the mask. Be careful! At this time, Kingsee's reminder came from behind. In Kingsee's perception, the aura of the Six Tails Jinchuriki in the center of the explosion smoke did not weaken at all. Instead, a destructive chakra aura was gathering rapidly. The smoke dissipated, and the Six Tails Jinchuriki appeared in everyone's sight. The chakra coating on his body had turned back to dark red, but the pupils of Kurishai Kushimaru and the other three who were standing not far from the six tails Jinchuriki could not help but shrink sharply. The huge explosion just now did affect the six tails Jinchuriki. The chakra of the tailed beasts on his body had become very thin under the bombardment of the explosion, but the Jinchuriki who had already gone berserk didn't care about his own condition. His instinct kept driving him to destroy everything he saw. What frightened several people was the purple-black chakra ball floating in front of the mouth of the six tails Jinchuriki not far away. Tailed beast Jade. Even with Kingxi's warning, they were not too far away from the six tails Jinchuriki, and although they reacted, it was too late to dodge. The tailed beast ball was launched at an extremely fast speed and arrived in front of several people in an instant. Attention, attention, attention! Famous scene. It's coming. Chapter 68. Looking at the tailed beast ball that was already within reach, everyone couldn't help but reveal a look of fear on their faces, and the breath of death was overwhelming. Attaching the tailed beast ball to his face, perhaps only the six-path sage can do it. At the critical moment, Biwajozo roared, took a step forward, mustered up the courage to pick up the beheading sword in his hand and slashed at the tailed beast ball, trying to use the sword to stop the tailed beast ball and buy time for his teammates to escape. However, the beheading sword was as fragile as paper in front of the tailed beast ball. It only lasted for a moment in front of the tailed beast ball before being broken into two pieces. The broken blade stabbed straight into Biwajozo's waist and abdomen. Fortunately, there were several teammates beside him. After seeing Biwajozo's heroic feat, they came to their senses and subconsciously pulled him, thus avoiding Biwajozo's fate of being killed by the broken blade. Although Biwajozo's actions were somewhat funny, reckless, or even overestimating his own abilities, he did manage to slightly deflect the direction of the tailed beast ball and bought a little bit of time. The Zigwashan puffer ghost that had just been knocked away had recovered under Samehada's treatment and arrived just at this critical moment. The watermelon mountain puffer demon waved Samehada vigorously to meet the tailed beast ball. Samehada opened its mouth wide and ate the tailed beast ball cleanly, making a few smacking sounds after it was done. After swallowing the tailed beast ball in one gulp, Samehada's body suddenly grew several times larger, almost catching up with the Zigwashan puffer demon. This tailed beast ball was truly a great tonic for Samehada. Kingxi and Sato Ying, who were behind, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when they saw that the few people were out of danger. Although Kyoshi was aware of the six tails Jinchuriki's attack, Kurishan Kushimaru and the others were too close to the six tails Jinchuriki. Kyoshi, who was not yet at the stage where he could just clap his hands and have whatever he wanted come true, had no time to rescue him. The six-tailed Jinchuriki whose tailed beast ball was eaten by Samehada roared angrily, and the violent tailed beast chakra further surged out of his body, and the chakra wave exploded, stirring up a gust of wind. Suddenly, the six tails Jinchuriki disappeared from his original place and appeared between several people in an instant. He shot from front, back, left and right, and six dark red chakra tails flew and lashed towards everyone. As expected, Kurishan Kushimaru and Murashige Shinpeki, who were slightly weaker in strength, were knocked away on the spot and seriously injured by the six tails Jinchuriki. However, the sixth tails Jinchuriki, Biwajozo, escaped by secretly using a water clone after performing the heroic feat of splitting the tailed beast ball with a sword. The Zigwashan puffer demon and the Tonko bait man each used their own methods to block the sudden attack of the six tails Jinchuriki. Even at this time, because Samehada had fed back a large amount of high-quality chakra, the watermelon mountain pufferfish demon still had the energy to launch a counterattack. Jozo! Back off! You can no longer participate in this battle without your beheading sword. Kingxi said. It has been less than 3 minutes since the start of the battle, and their side has lost 2 generals. The six-tailed Jinchuriki, whose body is wrapped in the chakra of the tailed beasts, has no blood for the broken beheading sword to suck. They can't let it suck Jozo Biwa's own blood. If the fight continues, Jozo Biwa will most likely be seriously injured or even killed. I have to say that honest people are blessed. Biwa Jozo's actions just now made Kingxi's favor towards him increase rapidly. He really made more room for advantage in front of his boss. After all, in a place like the ninja world, it is very reassuring to have a teammate who is reckless but honest enough to risk his life to rescue others at critical moments. After hearing what Kingxi said, Biwajozo retreated unwillingly. Although he still wanted to continue fighting, he actually knew that his current strength was indeed not enough to participate in the battle with the Jinchuriki, and this was also a kind of care for him by Kingxi as his superior. At this time, the Zigwashan puffer demon and the Tonko bait man had already started fighting fiercely with the six tails Jinchuriki again. Same Hata has a great ability to restrain the half-tailed beast Jinchuriki. The watermelon mountain pufferfish becomes more and more courageous as the battle goes on. His chakra is constantly consumed and replenished, his body is constantly injured and healed. With the assistance of Same Hata, he is a pure perpetual motion machine. But there is also a problem. Although Zigwashan pufferfish demon is constantly fighting with the six tails Jinchuriki, he lacks the means to make the final decision. Now he cannot break the six tails Jinchuriki's defense. Although Tokusa no Baito, who also fights in close combat, has the ability to break defenses, the blunt sword he holds, Dowry, is relatively too heavy and cannot hit the incredibly fast and extremely agile six tails Jinchuriki. Ching Si, who had been standing at the back and observing for fear of accidentally hurting his teammates in close combat, finally seized a fleeting opportunity. When Same Hata once again absorbed most of the chakra from the six-tailed Jinchuriki, while the six-tailed Jinchuriki's tailed beast coat was still repairing and its speed slowed down a little, King Si predicted its position in the next second, and took decisive action, quickly forming hand seals, and then slapped the ground heavily with his right hand. Earth Escape Earthquake Core. The six tails Jinchuriki, who was moving at high speed, was caught off guard and his balance was disrupted by the sudden rise of the ground. He staggered as if he had sprained his ankle, and his speed suddenly slowed down. Seeing this, Tonko Yabaran's eyes lit up. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It would be unjust if he didn't give the six tails Jinchuriki a chance to attack. He had been feeling unhappy for a long time because he hadn't hit the six tails after fighting for a long time. Taking advantage of the moment when the six tails Jinchuriki paused, Tokusa no Baito instantly rushed forward and used the Daogata to perform a combination of skills. As expected of a sword that is known to be able to break down all defenses, the blunt sword Dugetsu lived up to expectations and finally broke the defense of the six tails Jinchuriki. Chapter 69. Kabuto cut through the tailed beast chakra wrapped around the body of the six-tailed Jinchuriki, leaving a deep wound. Although the wound was healing rapidly under the effect of the tailed beast chakra, it eventually injured the six-tailed Jinchuriki again. The six tails Jinchuriki, who was injured again, was completely enraged and fell into complete madness. Activate Super Transformation. Zigwashan, Tonko, retreat quickly. King Si, who sensed something was wrong, shouted anxiously, and at the same time took out the ninja sword summoning scroll and quickly took out the double swords, Teitai, from it. Dark red chakra boiled on the surface of the six-tailed Jinchuriki's body, chakra bubbles kept emerging, and the six-tailed Jinchuriki's body expanded rapidly like a balloon, and in the blink of an eye it turned into a giant slug with six milky white tails. The six-tailed Jinchuriki entered a complete tailed beast form. The liberated Vulpix roared, and with a light sweep of its huge white tail, two figures flew out backwards. Although Zigwashan Puffer Demon and Tonko Yabaran began to retreat immediately the next second after King Si's loud reminder, the size of the tailed beasts was too large compared to humans. Even though they risked their lives, they could not retreat far away. They were seriously injured by a slight touch from the Vulpix's tail. The Zigwashan Puffer Ghost was fine, as with Same Hata's help, his injuries were recovering rapidly. However, the Tonko Yabaran was in a more miserable situation, as the right half of his body was swept by the six-tailed tail and he lost consciousness. Vulpix shook its huge head and slapped two bugs away with its tail, which made it, which had just appeared, very happy. He raised his head and opened his mouth wide, terrifying chakra fluctuations spread all around, yin and yang chakras quickly gathered, and Vulpix prepared to set off a big firework to celebrate. Tailed Beast Jade. A huge purple-black chakra ball flew towards everyone at an extremely fast speed. King Si stepped back slightly with his left foot, and grasped the two handles of the double swords with both hands on the same side. Chakra continued to flow into the double swords in his hands. Floor, Liberation. The flounder, which received the chakra supply from Kingji, emitted a brilliant blue halo as a whole. The round holes on the blade emitted a large amount of gaseous chakra, which then formed a huge chakra aggregate. After Kingji continuously input chakra, the volume became larger and larger. King Si completed charging his energy in a very short time, aimed at the tailed beast ball, gripped the hilt tightly and then swung it forward fiercely. An equally huge chakra energy bullet flew towards the tailed beast ball. The chakra energy bomb released by King Si collided with the tailed beast ball of the six tails in mid-air, making a deafening explosion. The roar of the explosion shook the air, and the nearby water vapor was instantly evaporated. The earth seemed to be shaking. The strong chakra shock wave spread around, giving people a strong feeling of suffocation. What a powerful power it is! The seven ninja swordsmen, especially the seriously injured ones, breathed a sigh of relief when they saw their captain display his extraordinary power and successfully block the tailed beast ball. It seemed that they would not have to go to the Pure Land together. You know, they are already seriously injured. If the tailed beast ball explodes near them, even if they are not at the center of the explosion, the aftermath of the explosion alone will be enough to send them to see the Six Paths Sage. Seeing his teammates seriously injured one by one, Kingsley knew that he could no longer hide. Now, facing the perfect Vulpix, he might not be able to use only ninjutsu and the double swords, Tai. In addition to the original four subordinates, these teammates also include Togasan Obito and Sato Kage, two people that Kyoji is not so familiar with. Originally, Kyoji was not prepared to reveal his abilities in front of the two before making sure that they could completely become his own people. Although their selection into the 7 ninja swordsmen represented the third Mizukage Bing's trust in them, Kyoji did not want to take the gamble. But he could not care less at this point. 3 people had already been seriously injured, and the remaining few, except for the Zigwashan pufferfish, would not be able to play much of a role in facing the complete tailed beasts. Kyoji had to go all out. Kingsley casually stuck the double swords, flounder, into the ground beside him and quickly formed seals with both hands. The tailed beasts are too huge, so Kingsley has to find a way to move the battlefield first, otherwise the aftermath of the battle will easily affect the seriously injured people. Water escape water formation pillar. A large amount of chakra gathered in his throat, and Kingsley opened his mouth and spit out a super large water ball. After the water ball landed on the ground, it spread rapidly, and the huge thrust swept the Vulpix back continuously. Seeing that the ninjutsu was working successfully, Kingsley ignored the flounder he had just inserted on the side, and quickly ran forward, continuing to make hand seals while shouting, "Kage, get ready! Water release, water dragon bullet technique!" With the help of the huge amount of water just created, Kingsley launched a combo attack. An extremely huge and ferocious water dragon emerged from the water array column and wrapped around Vulpix. Sato Kage, who was behind, heard Seiji's call and rushed his chakra into the thunder blade fang in his hand like crazy, then he held the 2 swords in his hands with his backhand and thrust them into the ground. Sato Kage knew very well that if he wanted to cause damage to the Vulpix, he could not save chakra. Thunder Sword Ninjutsu, Thunder Gate. The dazzling lightning seemed to tear through the void, bursting out from the hilt of the thunder blade fang, which was flashing with cold light, and rushed straight into the sky, as if it was going to tear the entire sky apart. This was the strongest attack that Sato Kage used up all his chakra. The powerful force of thunder and lightning surged in the air, forming a huge electric field. The lightning intertwined in the air and finally formed a lightning that looked like a door. The terrifying chakra aura echoed in the battlefield. The lightning slithered down like a snake and scorpion, and then hit the Vulpix wrapped in the water dragon. Time seemed to freeze at this moment, and the surrounding air was streaked by the lightning, bursting into countless tiny sparks. Combined Ninjutsu Thunder Water Dragon Bullet. The powerful electric current raged wildly in the water, like a ferocious venomous snake, spreading in all directions with its fangs and claws bared. And the already fierce water dragon, under the blessing of thunder and lightning, seemed to be reborn, and its power increased exponentially. The Vulpix, which had just tried to break free from the water dragon, was severely injured and could not resist the terrifying force at all. At the moment of being struck by lightning, it wanted to scream loudly in pain, but was controlled by the paralysis power attached to the thunder and water dragon bullet. It could not even open its mouth. It could only helplessly follow the surge of the water, twisting its body constantly and enduring severe pain. Vulpix's white body was covered with numerous tiny wounds, and there were traces of slight burns everywhere from being ravaged by lightning. Chapter 70. The Thunder Water Dragon Bullet carried the controlled Vulpix backwards continuously. Kingji sped up again and at the same time took out the ninja sword summoning scroll from the ninja tool bag. He made hand seals to summon the double swords, Aoi, which had just been inserted into the ground. Kingji really understood the summoning scroll. Chakra surged into the flounder, and the blade lit up. Floor, liberation. With the supply of chakra, the flatfish quickly grew larger. Kingji held the flatfish in his hand and continued to accelerate towards the Vulpix while constantly accumulating power. After accumulating energy, Kingsley took a deep breath, gathered chakra towards his legs, then suddenly jumped high, his eyes fixed on the Vulpix. In the air, Kingsley held the flounder tightly in both hands and swung it forward with all his strength. A huge and surging crescent-shaped sword energy gushed out from the flounder, like a meteor across the sky, and went straight to Vulpix with unparalleled power. Double Sword Ninjutsu, Crescent Moon Sky Strike. The blade was extremely fast, like lightning, and in the blink of an eye it struck Vulpix's body. In an instant, blood gushed out, and another hideous wound appeared on Vulpix's body. After being hit so hard, Vulpix let out a painful whine, and the control of the Thunder Water Dragon bullet finally ended. However, the sword energy did not dissipate, but instead pushed Vulpix to fly back at a faster speed. Vulpix's huge body drew a long arc in the air, and finally hit the ground in the distance heavily, stirring up a cloud of dust. Without paying close attention to the damage caused by the sword energy, Kingxi continued to rush towards Vulpix as soon as his feet touched the ground. You put the flatfish back into the scroll while running, and then Kingxi stretched his right hand to his back. Corpse Vein, Dance of the Wire Flower. Vines. Under Kingxi's control, the spine pierced through his shirt and armor, and slowly emerged from his cervical vertebrae. Kingxi tightly grasped the spine that was emitting a cold light, and then pulled it violently. With a creepy sound, the entire bone was completely pulled out of his body, and then he threw it hard towards the Vulpix in front of him. The dark white bone whip continued to grow longer under the effect of chakra, and wrapped around one of the Vulpix's tails like a vine. Kingxi used the force to pull it, and at the same time chakra burst out of his whole body. He flew towards the Vulpix like an arrow. Corpse Vein, Dance of the Wire Flower. Flower. All the bones of Kingxi's left arm quickly penetrated his body and then condensed into a huge spiral bone drill. The bone drill was completely white and flashed a heart-pounding cold light, as if it was a weapon from hell, emitting endless pressure and murderous intent. Vulpix, which had just been stunned by a set of combined punches, has now come to its senses. Looking at Kingxi, who is approaching it rapidly, it does not think much and flicks its tail to knock Kingxi away. Kingxi's strength was far superior to that of the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost and the Tungzao Wild Bait Man. Just because the two of them couldn't resist it didn't mean Kingxi couldn't resist it either. Kingxi stretched out his left arm, slightly tilted his body, and used the iron wire flower to meet the tail swung by the Vulpix. The skeleton, strengthened to the extreme, carried endless murderous intent and aura of destruction, and with the force of thunder, it pierced through the tail of the six-tailed beast in one blow. After piercing through the Vulpix's tail, Kingxi rotated his body in the air. The bone drill in his left hand quickly turned into a bone knife, and then he chopped it down with one blow. Swordsmanship, draw the sword and slash. In an instant, blood gushed out like a fountain, forming a scarlet blood rain in the air, falling down in large quantities. The sudden severe pain caused by the tail being pierced and then cut off made Vulpix let out an extremely shrill roar. Can anyone share some knowledge? Do tailed beasts bleed when they are injured? I have been searching for a long time but couldn't find it. If they don't bleed, what should be the wound? In the distance, Togasan Obito fell to the ground seriously injured and his chakra was exhausted and he had lost his fighting ability. When Sato Kage, who was watching over him, saw CG pulling out his spine, he understood everything. This is the corpse bone vein. So the captain is from the Kagaya clan? No wonder, the third Hokage has ideas about the Kagaya clan. All kinds of thoughts flashed through the two people's minds, and finally they fell silent. They looked at each other, but said nothing. Tsuyu Noito was originally a guard ninja carefully trained by the third Mizukage Bing, so his loyalty to him is beyond doubt. As the captain of the 7 ninja swordsmen, the Shadow Guard, and the designated successor of the third Mizukage Bing, CG is also the grandson of the elder Yuanshi. Tsuyu Noito will definitely work wholeheartedly under CG and do his best to serve him. After all, following such a powerful captain with a deep background, the future is bright. As for Sato Kage, as the current patriarch of the Sato clan, a small ninja clan in the village, he is well versed in the ways of the ninja clan. The interests of the small ninja clan are closely linked to the Kirigakure clan, and it can be said that they are basically consistent with the Kirigakure clan. In order for the family to achieve better development, not to mention that he has now become a member of the highly regarded 7 ninja swordsmen. Once Kiyoshi takes office as the 4th generation, he, as a loyal subordinate of Kiyoshi, will take off directly. Since Kiyoshi has never mentioned it to them before and has never shown the ability of the corpse vein, he will naturally choose to turn a blind eye and pretend that he knows nothing about it. At this time, the Vulpix, which was beaten all over by Kingxi's combination of punches, no longer had the joy of its original form appearing in the ninja world again. Although this minor injury was nothing to the Vulpix, it was still itchy because of the lice. The angry Vulpix wanted to grind Kingxi, the little bug who hurt it, into ashes. The hatred value of Kingxi in the heart of Vulpix now exceeds that of the third Mizukage Bing who had sealed him many times, and is second only to Hashirama Senju who used a wooden Buddha to capture it as easily as catching a chicken. For Vulpix, what CG did was simply unforgivable. From its birth 1,000 years ago to now, its tail had never been broken by humans. In comparison, the third Mizukage, at most, made it lose its freedom, but that level of hatred was far less than the hatred for CG at this moment. The 1,000-armed Hashirama, who was regarded as a nightmare by the Vulpix, was a legendary ninja in the ninja world. His incomparable strength, the wood release that had a strong suppressive effect on the tailed beasts, and the 1,000-armed giant Buddha that was dozens of times larger than the tailed beasts, made the Vulpix still feel scared even decades later. Whenever the Vulpix thought of the scene where he was manipulated like a toy by the other party, he would feel an unprecedented sense of humiliation and powerlessness. Chapter 71. The tailed beast chakra, filled with violent aura, was like a volcano about to erupt. It suddenly erupted violently in all directions without any warning. The shock wave formed by the chakra was like a substance, with unparalleled power, instantly setting off an extremely violent chakra storm. The tailed beasts truly deserve the name of natural disasters. Kingxi, who was originally preparing to continue attacking the Vulpix, could clearly sense that the chakra power that burst out was extremely strong. Kingxi, who did not want to resist, had to retreat and avoid the attack. Suddenly, a bitingly cold wind blew past, as if freezing the entire world. At this moment, base number 6 had completely disappeared, having completely vanished in the aftermath of the battle, leaving only desolation and deathly silence. Kingxi stared at the Vulpix in the distance with a cold and firm look in his eyes. He tightly grasped the bone blade in his hand, and a solemn aura emanated from his whole body. This position should be about right, I can start now. Kingxi thought secretly. This place was already far away from the place where Biwajozo and others had just fought. Vulpix's huge pupils were also staring at Kingxi. This tiny insect actually dared to cut off its tail. Kingxi and Vulpix confronted each other like this. As time passed, the atmosphere became more and more tense, and the air around them seemed to solidify. Finally, Kingxi was the first to break the silence. He walked forward step by step, and each step he took was faster than the previous one. Soon, Kingxi's originally steady pace began to become hurried, and his steps became faster and faster, rushing towards the position of Vulpix. At base number 3, the third Mizukage Bing, who had already subdued the three tails, finally waited for the elder Haruya who hurried over from the village and the Anbu Chankin who was guarding him. Elder Chenyu, hurry up, let's seal the three-tailed beast back first. Bing said anxiously, the six-tailed beast is also going berserk at the same time. I sent the shadow guards over, but they won't be able to hold it back for too long. I need to rush over to support them as soon as possible. Chenyu nodded, indicating that he understood, then put down the sealing pot in his hand and quickly began to make complicated seals with his hands. Seeing this, Bing also started to make seals at the same time as Chenyu. After a long time of making seals, they both ended with the yin seal. Then they put their index and middle fingers together and pointed at the three tails that were frozen in ice. Ninjutsu, Ryoji seal. Under the effect of the sealing technique, the huge body of the three tails began to shrink slowly, as if being squeezed by an invisible pressure. As time went on, the body of the three tails became smaller and smaller, and finally turned into dark red chakra and was sealed back into the body of the three tails Jinchuriki. When the last trace of chakra was sealed into the body of the three tails Jinchuriki, the air around them seemed to freeze for a moment. Then, everything returned to calm, as if nothing had happened. Only the rich chakra fluctuations of the tailed beasts that remained in the air proved that the thrilling battle just now had existed. Bing steadily caught the three tails Jinchuriki falling from the sky. At this moment, the dying three tails Jinchuriki opened his eyes as if he was having a last breath. Cough, cough, cough. I'm sorry, third generation master. The three tails Jinchuriki gasped with difficulty, and every breath was as painful as if it was burned by fire, and the hoarse voice seemed to be squeezed out from the depths of his throat. Blood continued to overflow from the corners of his mouth, forming a shocking red line, and tears continued to flow from his bloodshot eyes like a flood that broke through the dam. As consciousness gradually returned, the three tails Jinchuriki saw devastation everywhere he looked. Broken buildings, fallen trees, and bodies and blood all over the ground. These scenes lingered in his mind like a nightmare. A strong sense of self-blame surged in his heart, and he finally realized what he had done. Those once familiar faces had now become cold, and they all lost their lives because of him. He closed his eyes in pain, tears welled up again, his body trembled uncontrollably, and his heart was filled with endless regret and guilt. The experience of a lifetime was playing quickly in front of his eyes like a movie, and the scenes in his memory kept flashing by like a revolving lantern. In the last moment of his life, the Three Tails Jinchuriki was filled with guilt for his dead companions and his nostalgia and reluctance to give up life. Raising his right hand with difficulty, the Three Tails Jinchuriki clenched his right fist in the air, as if trying to grab something. Looking at the dying Three Tails Jinchuriki, Bing was silent for a moment, and then asked the Three Tails Jinchuriki in a low voice, "Do you have any other wishes?" After hearing Bing's question, the Three Tails Jinchuriki's eyes lit up slightly, and he used up his last bit of strength to ask, "Thank you, Third Sama. After I die, please bury me here. I want to be with my wife forever. Finally, please ask the village to take good care of my child Yujao. He is less than 1 year old now." Before the third Mizukage Bing could answer, Chun Yu at the side spoke first, "You are a hero who sacrificed for the village. I will accept your child as my apprentice and raise him. You can go without worry." Seeing Haruyu open his mouth, Bing didn't say anything else and nodded slightly at the Three Tails Jinchuriki. As an unsung hero of Kirigakure, this reasonable request must be fulfilled. The Three Tails Jinchuriki, who received a satisfactory answer, slowly closed his eyes. His life breath began to weaken rapidly, and his life fire was quickly extinguished. Bing and Haruyu, who were used to seeing life and death separations, still felt a little unhappy. After all, the Three Tails Jinchuriki had given everything for the village. The two did not communicate anymore, but silently formed hand seals. While the Three Tails Jinchuriki's life fire was still burning, they pulled the three tails out of his body and sealed it in the sealing pot that Haruyu brought from the village. After calming down his slightly sad mood, Bing said to Jian, "You are responsible for escorting the sealing pot back to the village immediately. Elder Chenyu and I will go to station number 6 to deal with Vulpix." The official book shows that the six-tailed Jinchuriki Yutaka died at the age of 26. He should have been captured by pain during the Shippuden era and the tailed beast was extracted, but there is no clear time of death. So it is roughly speculated that it should be around the same time as Gaara was captured, which is around the 63rd year of Konoha. So his birth year is about 35 to 37 years in Kirigakure. This book sets him to be born in the 35th year of Kirigakure, a little earlier, to make up for the process of his acquaintance with his master, Elder Haru Same. Chapter 72. Bing and Chenyu rushed to base number 6 to reinforce Kingxi and others. Meanwhile, Kingxi has started fighting Vulpix again. Vulpix looked at Kingxi who was rushing towards it quickly and spat out a mouthful of strong acid. Kingxi had just witnessed the powerful corrosive ability of Vulpix's strong acid and didn't want to resist it head-on. Although he was confident that the defense of his own corpse bone vein was enough to resist this corrosion in a short period of time, he didn't want to be stubborn and take the initiative to try. Using the technique of instant body movement continuously, Kingxi avoided the strong acid attacks spit out by the Vulpix time and time again, and gradually approached the huge body of the Vulpix. Seeing that Kingxi dodged all of its attacks and was getting closer and closer to it, Vulpix became more and more irritated and angry at this invincible little bug. Ninjutsu, know the wolf's decay. The Vulpix skill set in the official manual is defined as a ninjutsu, but it does not specify which attribute it belongs to. Vulpix took a deep breath, then opened its mouth and sprayed out a very large range of highly corrosive solution. The solution covered the area around Vulpix, leaving Kingxi with no place to step. Seeing that the situation was not good, Kingxi immediately condensed his chakra at the soles of his feet and continued to rush towards the Vulpix on the solution. Sizzle! 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 The solution also has a strong corrosive effect on chakra. The chakra attached to Kingxi's feet was constantly being dissolved, and white smoke continued to emerge from where his feet stepped. The speed at which the chakra dissolved was beyond Kingxi's imagination. Even if he continued to replenish the chakra to the soles of his feet, it could not keep up with the speed of the solution consuming it. In desperation, he leaped into the air and continued to approach the Vulpix from the air. This was exactly what Vulpix wanted, as it had no leverage in the air. Vulpix swung out one of its tails and slapped Kyoji hard, trying to knock him back to the ground and let Kyoji be corroded by the solution. Seeing Vulpix's actions, Kingxi did not sit still and wait for death. He quickly formed seals with his hands and then put his palms together. Wind release, gale wind palm. The wind converted from chakra was constantly compressed and evolved into a fierce and violent gale, and then gradually wrapped around Kingxi's body under his control. With the blessing of the gale, King C's speed suddenly increased. The sudden acceleration caught Vulpix off guard, and its tail hit the air. Vulpix hurriedly tried to swing its other tails to stop King C from approaching, but it was too late. King C had already reached Vulpix's body. Shakebone Pulse Dance of Karamatsu. King C raged wildly on Vulpix's body, and a series of attacks continued to cause damage to Vulpix. For Vulpix, this kind of scraping-like damage basically had no big effect on it, but there was a little bug jumping around on its body, which was very annoying. Vulpix swung its body wildly, trying to throw King C off it, but it was in vain. King C was still jumping around on Vulpix, constantly attacking Vulpix with the bone spurs extending from all parts of its body and the bone blades in its hands. Unable to bear it any longer, Vulpix roared and began to secrete translucent mucus from its body. Ninjutsu, Hiruma. This is also the skill given in the official formula book. The body of Vulpix was gradually covered by strong acid mucus. The corrosiveness of the mucus made King C unable to stay on Vulpix any longer. He had to burst out his chakra and use wind escape to accelerate again to leave Vulpix's body. Vulpix, annoyed by King C's harassment, didn't want to waste any more time. When it saw King C leaving its body, it raised its head slightly and was about to use the tailed beast ball. At this time, King C, who was already far away from the Vulpix and about to fall from the sky, sensed that the destructive chakra of the Vulpix was quickly gathering behind him. His heart skipped a beat and he thought to himself that he was in trouble. Looking back at the Vulpix, at this time, a huge, high-density purple-black chakra ball had appeared in front of the Vulpix. Tailed Beast Jade. Looking at the tailed beast ball coming towards him at high speed, King C couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. If he was hit head-on, he would probably be reduced to ashes by the six tails. Thoughts raced through King C's mind, and ordinary defensive ninjutsu were simply unable to resist them. Such a huge tailed beast ball, I'm afraid Samehada won't be able to absorb it at all. Kyoji thought to himself, then this is the only trick. At this moment, Kyoji recalled the devastating scene in the battle between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama in the Valley of the End in his Haiki's memory. In that battle, Hashirama Senju once blocked the nine-tailed beast ball under the power suit Susanoo. It can't be said that he blocked it. Hashirama Senju used the defensive summoning item Rashomon to change the attack trajectory of the beast ball and thus avoided this extremely powerful blow. After the war, Ishaiki, who controlled Jijin to watch the whole battle, became very interested in the defensive props called Rashomon, so he tried every means to get this move from Konoha. This also benefited CG, and CG had signed a contract for the prop summoning with Rashomon a few years ago. Although Kyoji's current strength is still a long way from that of Hashirama Senju, he is not facing the nine tails now. The tailed beast ball of the six tails is far inferior to that of the nine tails and the power nine tails, both in size and power. King C adjusted his posture in the air, stabilized his body, and then fell heavily to the ground. There was no time for King C to calm down the blood and chi in his body, because the six-tailed beast ball was very close at this time. King C bit his right thumb, quickly formed a seal for the psychic summoning technique, and then slapped the ground with his right hand. The art of spiritual communication. Uncle San is here to repair the gate. Triple Rashomon. Chapter 73. Where King C slapped, a huge black summoning magic circle emerged, and three red, green, and blue extremely hard and heavy doors engraved with ghost faces rose from the ground and appeared on the path that the tailed beast ball had to pass through. At the same time when the triple Rashomon was summoned, King C suddenly felt weak. The chakra consumed in summoning the triple Rashomon was too much. It was hard to imagine how much chakra Hashirama Senju had to easily summon the fifth Rashomon. The tailed beast ball emitted a terrifying wave, carrying the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, and crashed into the Rashomon. The moment the two collided, there was a deafening roar, and the shock wave generated by the collision spread to the surroundings at an alarming speed, setting off a violent wave of air. Rashomon was shaken violently by the impact of the tailed beast ball, and the ancient runes on it flashed with dazzling light, as if trying to resist this powerful force. However, the power of the tailed beast ball is not something that can be easily resisted. The first Rashomon only blocked the tailed beast ball for a moment before it was broken through and dissipated into white smoke. The second Rashomon lasted half a breath longer than the previous one and was also broken through, but most of the power of the tailed beast ball was also consumed. The tailed beast ball hit the third Rashomon, but was blocked by the third Rashomon, and there was a stalemate between the two for a while. But the Rashomon was ultimately unable to withstand such a huge impact, and cracks began to appear on the door. As the cracks continued to spread, the third Rashomon collapsed, and countless fragments flew everywhere. The tailed beast ball also dissipated in this violent explosion, and the released energy formed a huge ball of light, and the surrounding space seemed to be distorted. The wind was howling, smoke and dust were everywhere, and the earth was shaking under the impact of this extremely powerful explosion. Ching Si breathed a sigh of relief, finally blocking this devastating attack. The gap between the six-tailed beast and the nine-tailed beast was still a little bit bigger, and facing the six-tailed beast ball, the triple Rashomon was just right. Taking out the ninja sword summoning scroll from the ninja tool bag again, King Ji took a breath, then formed a hand seal to summon Samehada from the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon. The fierce fight just now and the summoning of the triple Rashomon had consumed a lot of King Ji's chakra. At this time, most of his chakra had been consumed, and he urgently needed Samehada to replenish it. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost, who was happily recovering from his injuries with the help of Samehada in the back, was stunned when he saw Samehada suddenly disappear, leaving only a burst of white smoke. After a long while, the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish finally realized that it must be the Captain Kingsi who summoned Samehada away. Samehada, who was summoned by the spirit, wrapped the handle of the sword around Seiji's arm very cleverly. Compared with the chakra of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, Samehada was obviously more eager for Seiji's delicious and high-quality chakra. However, at this time, King Ji summoned Samehada not to feed it chakra. He bent down and touched Samehada's head, which had become bigger due to absorbing a large amount of Vulpix's chakra, to comfort it. Samehada twisted its body slightly unhappily, but still supplied chakra to King Ji. A large amount of tailed beast chakra filtered by Samehada was continuously transported into Kyoshi's body. Just now, Samehada absorbed the chakra of several tails of the six tails, and even a tailed beast ball emitted by the six tails in its half-tailed beast state. After using it to heal the injuries of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, there was still a lot left. With the help of Samehada, Kyoshi's chakra recovered quickly, and soon he felt the fullness of chakra again. However, Kyoshi, who was focused on how to stop the Vulpix from continuing to wreak havoc, did not notice that as the Vulpix's chakra entered his body, his Otsutsuki bloodline had a slight fluctuation. Although the six-tailed chakra that entered Seiji's body was filtered by Samehada, it still had the properties of the tailed beast chakra. The six-tailed chakra was once a part of the 10-tailed chakra of Kagaya Otsutsuki. Therefore, the six-tailed chakra that entered Seiji's body would naturally have a slight stimulating effect on Seiji's current bloodline. Kingsi did not pay attention to the changes in his body, he was hesitating at this moment. At this stage, although he has learned a lot, he does not have the ninjutsu that can suppress or control the tailed beasts. Some of the powerful ninjutsu he has mastered, Kingsi is not good at or dare not use, for fear that Kirigakure will lose the six-tailed beast accidentally. After all, the six-tailed beast is already in a state that may be broken at any time. If he uses the power of Samehada, he should be able to suppress Vulpix theoretically, but the problem is that he looks too ugly after the transformation. Kingsi really can't accept it and rejects it. After a moment, Kingsi finally made up his mind. The others basically had no ability to fight anymore. If he couldn't stop the complete Vulpix before the third Mizukage Bing arrived, then the 7 ninja swordsmen might lose members in the first mission. Having made up his mind, Kingsi decisively began to make hand seals, and the Vulpix, whose tailed beast ball had no effect, was now rushing towards Kingsi, preparing to close the distance and hit Kingsi in the face again. Who will repair the water dam? Kingsi puffed up his mouth, and nearly half of the chakra in his body gathered into his mouth frantically. A large amount of water spewed out of Kingsi's mouth, instantly forming a huge water ball with Kingsi as the center, wrapping up Kingsi and the Vulpix that was rushing over. Chapter 74. Today was okay. I didn't get off work that late, so I had enough time to write 2 chapters. The third-generation Mizukage Bing and Elder Chun Yu, who were rushing towards base number 6, suddenly saw from afar an extremely large oval water ball appearing where they were heading. Bing's perception continued to spread forward, first sensing the faint chakra aura of several injured members of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and then clearly sensing the chakra of Seiji and Vulpix inside the water ball. Bing's face changed and he felt a little worried inside. Elder Chun Yu, I'll go ahead. When you arrive, go and treat the injured. Please be sure to protect them. After Bing said that, he increased his speed to the extreme and sped up to rush to the battlefield between Kingsi and Liyue. Although the Vulpix is a tailed beast formed by the aggregation of chakras, it still has some of the nature of its original slug form. Although it is not afraid of water jutsu, it does hate the water-filled environment created by the Great Water Blast. Therefore, the Vulpix subconsciously used Hiruzen again to make its body surface covered with strong acid solution, which continuously corroded and evaporated the surrounding water in an attempt to escape from the great water blast. Seeing that he had successfully trapped the Vulpix, Kingji no longer hesitated, and Samehada's blade began to wrap around his body. Grand Sword Ninja Technique and Samehada Fusion. Kingsi completely merged with Samehada and turned into an ugly and ferocious mermaid with a tail. Water Style, Water Prison Same Dance Technique. Kingsi moved at high speed in the water like a flash of lightning. His body after fusing with Samehada blended perfectly with the water flow. His movements in the water became extremely light and he felt almost no resistance. Although his appearance had changed, his strength had been greatly improved. Kiji, I became uglier, but I also became stronger. Squinting Smile.jpg. At this time, Vulpix was trying its best to escape from the water, but its speed in the water was obviously affected and became slower. And how could Kingsi easily do what it wanted? The giant water prison formed by the big explosion wave is centered on Kingsi when he is not actively controlling it. The speed of Vulpix in the water is far slower than Kingsi. If Vulpix tries to escape, Kingsi can quickly chase it. Soon, Kingsi caught up with Vulpix who was trying to escape, and launched a series of intensive attacks on it without mercy, leaving it no chance to escape. Although the surface of Vulpix's body is covered with a highly corrosive acid solution, making every attack of Kingsi an injury in exchange for injury, don't forget that Samehada has the ability to recover from injuries and absorb chakra. When Kingsi merged with Samehada, he naturally inherited these abilities. In addition to causing some minor wounds to the Vulpix, each of Kingji's attacks would also take away some of its chakra, and the absorbed chakra would be used to recover from his injuries. What Kingsi didn't know was that the Six Tails chakra absorbed into his body was continuously integrated into his body and gradually strengthened his blood quietly and silently while he focused all his energy on fighting. What Kingsi didn't realize was that in his body, under the influence of the Otsutsuki bloodline, a small part of the Vulpix chakra merged with his own chakra to produce a unique chakra. This special chakra was quietly flowing to his head, or more precisely, to the meridians of his eyes. The opportunity that Kingsi has been waiting for many years has finally come. The Vulpix's chakra was constantly weakened in the large water prison created by CG, but CG became more and more courageous and madly output damage, scraping, to various parts of the Vulpix's body. Suddenly, a very strong chakra signal broke into Kingsi's perception. After careful identification, Kingsi was very familiar with the chakra aura of the person who came. It was the third Mizukage Bing. Sensing the ice getting closer, Kingsi slowly slowed down his attack rhythm and gradually slowed down his offensive. He knew that his mission was over. Bing arrived at full speed, ignoring the few people who were observing at the edge due to injuries or exhaustion, and rushed directly to the position of Kingsi and Vulpix. Although he had sensed the battle between Kingsi and Vulpix through perception, it was not until Bing saw with his own eyes Kingsi being beaten by Vulpix in the water ball that his heart finally settled down. Sure enough, the facts proved that his decision to form the special force of the 7 ninja swordsmen was correct. Although the others were injured and only Kyoji was still fighting, the others must have gone through a hard battle and played a certain role. You know, the 7 ninja swordsmen are in a stage of rapid growth in strength and are far from reaching the peak of their strength. When sending them to carry out this mission, Bing was even prepared for the newly formed elite troops to suffer casualties. The current Kirigakure really cannot produce a strong enough force to contend with the tailed beasts. Facing the tailed beasts, if there is no CG and others, they can only rely on numbers. It is conceivable that if they were given enough time to improve their own strength, Kirigakure would be able to take off right away. Bing seemed to have foreseen that a few years later, the 7 ninja swordsmen, led by Kiyoshi, would gallop across the battlefield, invincible, and kill everyone in their path. Chapter 75. Bing finally arrived near the large water prison built by Kingji. Seeing Bing arrive, Kingji took the initiative to cancel the technique, dissipated the chakra that maintained the large explosive water wave, and then withdrew from the fusion state. Samehada slowly emerged from his arm and separated from his body. In fact, even if Bing didn't come, Kingsi felt that with some time, he could completely deal with the Vulpix by himself. After all, this was just the Vulpix that had completely transformed into a tailed beast due to the Jinchuriki's rampage, and it was not a wild Vulpix. Vulpix suddenly felt its surroundings loosen, and the water environment that bound it had disappeared. Without thinking too much, it opened its mouth to condense the tailed beast ball. It wanted to blast CG, the ninja it hated so much, to pieces. Suddenly, the figure of Bing appeared in Vulpix's eyes, and the memory of being educated by Bing in various postures came to mind, and the action of Vulpix gathering yin-yang chakra also paused. And it was this pause that made Vulpix lose its freedom again, and Bing's ninjutsu was activated. Ice Escape Ice Age. He started with an A-level Ice Escape. Having already fought with the Three Tails, Bing didn't want to get entangled with the Six Tails anymore, so he made a decisive move and froze the Six Tails. The tailed beast ball that was still in the process of condensing was also interrupted. During the battle with Cg, nearly half of Vulpix's chakra had been sucked away. In its current state, it was unable to break free from the ice-breaking ninjutsu in a short period of time. Although the strong acid solution all over its body was constantly corroding the ice that froze it, the speed of corrosion was far slower than the speed of ice regeneration due to the maintenance of the ice. After a while, Elder Harusame, who had used medical ninjutsu to heal the remaining 6 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen, also rushed over. Chun Yu took out the storage scroll he carried with him and took out another sealing pot from it. Just like with the Three Tails, Bing and Haruya finally sealed the 6 tails back into the Jinchuriki's body. Then, while the Jinchuriki had not yet returned to the Pure Land, they pulled the 6 tails out of his body and sealed it in a sealing pot. Unfortunately, the 6 tails Jinchuriki had completely lost his self-awareness and did not even have the chance to leave a last word. After the 6 tails was pulled out of his body, he soon went to see the Sage of 6 Paths. At this time, Ching Si, who had been in the fusion state with Samehada for a while, felt something was wrong. Why did his chakra suddenly increase so much? Now it is almost twice as much as before, and it is still growing rapidly. King Si couldn't help but wonder, and knowing many secrets, he had some guesses about this. Suddenly, his eyes felt hot, a strange light flashed across them, and his vision suddenly became blurred. King Si's pupils gradually began to change, and at this moment, King Si felt that he had established a connection with the Daikokyuden space left by Otsutsuki as Heike. King Si lowered his head hurriedly. At this time, he had realized something. It was a serious matter. Although he was wearing a mask, he subconsciously did not want others to see the scene. At this time, the third Mizukage Bing and the elder Harusame were still discussing the follow-up matters of the tailed beasts. Their attention was not on King Si, so they did not notice his abnormality. No one, including King Si himself, noticed that his eyeballs kept switching between the original light green and the newly appeared light blue, and his conjunctiva kept changing between the original white and black. In the end, it calmed down and returned to normal. The slightly uncomfortable burning sensation faded away, and a cool feeling came from his eyes, making King Si feel extremely comfortable. He felt that his vision seemed to be much clearer. Along with the changes in his eyes, the growth rate of the chakra in King Si's body increased by several levels again, and began to rise wildly like a wild horse. In just a few breaths, it doubled again on the basis of being close to doubling, and it was still rising at an extremely fast speed. The sudden increase in chakra made King Si almost unable to control it, and a little bit of chakra overflowed from his body. The escaping chakra fluctuations attracted the attention of the third Mizukage Bing, who was discussing something with the elder Harusame. "What's wrong, Xiao King Si?" Bing asked, turning his gaze to look at King Si. King Si did not raise his head and avoided looking at Bing. Although Bing treated him well usually and he did not intend to hide these things from Bing later, at present, even he himself did not understand the specific situation, and of course he did not intend to let Bing know now. King Si's mind was spinning rapidly, thinking about how to resolve this issue. At this time, Chen Yu spoke up and rescued King Si in time. After going through such a great battle, he still had to fight against Vulpix and was even able to suppress Vulpix with his explosion in the end. Even with the help of Samehada, he must have some internal injuries, not to mention the mental exhaustion. Chun Yu's guess gave Ching Si a very reasonable excuse. King Si took advantage of the situation and pretended to be weak after a hard fight, and acted like a veteran actor as soon as he opened his mouth. "Yes, Lord Sandame, I am indeed a little tired, and I was a little dazed just now." Bing nodded without thinking carefully. Based on King Si's good performance over the years, he believed King Si's explanation without thinking too much. "We are about to return. Go back and have a good rest. You, the 7 ninja swordsmen, have been the heroes of the village this time. Lord Mizukage and I will send Vulpix back to the village first. You should also return as soon as possible. Their injuries still need further treatment." Chun Yu looked at the 3 seriously injured people in the distance and spoke. Bing nodded in agreement, and without saying anything else, turned around and left with Haruyu, taking the sealing pot that contained Vulpix. After Bing and Chinyu left, Kingxi hurried to a puddle left over from the battle and looked down. It's not the Byakugan. Kyoji was a little disappointed. His eyes were still the same as before, without any changes. It seemed that he did not awaken the Otsutsuki clan's iconic Byakugan, but had a mutation like Ishiki. I just don't know if he inherited Ishiki's special black eyes and pupil techniques. Forget it, let's talk about it when we get back. Ching Si thought immediately, it's better not to roll your eyes, otherwise this change can't be hidden from anyone. After all, the Byakugan's iconic pure white pupils are so classic that any ninja with a little common sense can recognize them at a glance. Let's talk about the combat power. In the early stage, the combat power of some protagonists was indeed suppressed. On the one hand, I was afraid that the combat power would be increased too much and I would not be able to control it. If I directly wrote it as an invincible article, I would not be able to continue writing it later because the outline was not made according to the mode of an invincible article. On the other hand, Otsutsuki was not as powerful as imagined. He was not at the level of dimensionality reduction attack. In the battles between ninjas before the 6 paths level, intelligence is still very important. After the 6 paths level, it is actually the same. For example, the 5 Kage surrounded and beat Otsutsuki Kinshiki, and Gashin Kashi used the fairy fire escape to kill Jijin who knew young Biguna. This shows that the conventional 6 paths level is not invincible. Of course, I think Boruto's setting should take most of the blame. Otsutsuki's elbow strike, Uchiha's hug and throw, Ibiki's military boxing, it's all quite funny anyway. But I think it should be fine in the future. After the eye technique is awakened, the strength will enter a period of rapid growth, and soon it will be able to rival the cages of various villages. Finally, I hope you all enjoy reading the book. Friends who have time, please give a good review in your spare time, and leave your impressions and suggestions on the book in the book review section. Chapter 76. Let's talk about the issue of combat power. My combat power is based on the official set of Kawaki's ability value. According to the official ability value of Kawaki, the young Kawaki can rival the Jonin after the outbreak of the wedge, and when he is in full condition and has used all his means, he can almost rival the Kage. The young Kawaki slowly absorbed the legacy of Ishiki and his combat power reached its peak. So according to this setting, after absorbing the wedge, his bloodline evolved once, and before his eyes awakened, his strength should be second only to that of a shadow. The wedge is very strong, but not outrageous. It can enhance a person's strength, but it cannot make him or her reach the sky in one step. 1213241416. The official did not specify Kawaki's age. In the youth arc, Boruto is set to be 16 years old, and Kawaki is probably around 18 to 20 years old at this time. The strength of the two is almost the same, and they have reached the ceiling of their combat power. Boruto is like a biological son, with a peach llama inside his body, which allows him to cheat in various ways. Kawaki had a wedge inserted into his body when he was a child, and was always trained as a tool by Ishiki. After all, the protagonist is not the destined child of the Naruto world, and his growth is a little slower than that of the children of the world, 6 paths, Naruto, Sasuke, Boruto, Kawaki. I think it should be possible to make sense of it. Hidden Mist Village, Hidden Mist Hospital. Kurishan Kushimaru, Mori Shinpeki and Tsurugi Yaito were lying on the hospital bed, wrapped tightly in medical bandages. If you cover your face, you would think that 3 second-generation Tsutsuki broke into the Hidden Mist Village. Although Elder Haruyu arrived and gave emergency treatment to several people except Kingxi, the injuries of these 3 were indeed a bit serious. Haruyu's medical ninjutsu could only prevent the injuries of the 3 from getting worse. If we really want to see the follow-up treatment and rehabilitation and ensure that there are no hidden injuries, then it is still Kirigakure Hospital. Ching Si and the remaining 3 members of the 7 were only slightly injured and did not need to stay in the hospital for follow-up treatment and recuperation, so after receiving a simple examination and treatment of their injuries, they sat aside and looked at the 3 big idiots with amusement. After a team fight, the relationship between the few people improved by leaps and bounds, and the team atmosphere was extremely harmonious. Kingxi, who was awarded the MVP of this team battle, naturally made everyone come together. After all, admiring the strong is an old tradition of Kirigakure. Zigwashin Pufferfish Demon, Kurishan Kushimaru, Mori Shinpeki and Biwajozo were all old subordinates of Kyoji when he was in the Anbu. They had become his loyal subordinates under Kyoji's combination of kindness and force. Both Tonko Yato and Sato Kage are quite sensible people. After all, there is an old Chinese saying that goes, he who knows the current affairs is a hero. Can we have a dubbing function? There should be dubbing here. On the one hand, they are impressed by Seiji's unfathomable strength. As long as Seiji's strength remains dominant, they will not betray him. On the other hand, they are optimistic about Seiji's future position. Wouldn't it be great to become a follower of the future 4th Mizukage? At this time, the door of the ward was pushed open, and the 3rd Mizukage Bing walked in first, followed by an elderly woman. The years have left subtle wrinkles on the face of this elderly woman, but this does not affect her temperament at all. Her grey hair is very neatly groomed, and her face with clear contours exudes elegance and kindness. President Ringo? Bing asked, how are the injuries of the 3 of them? Are they in any trouble? The person who came in with Bing was the director of the Kirigakure Hospital, Minako Ringo. The Kirigakure Hospital was established after the last Ninja World War by the 3rd Mizukage Bing, who felt that a large number of elite ninjas died after returning to the village with serious injuries because they did not receive timely treatment, or because they did not receive timely treatment and could no longer continue to be ninjas. The head of the Ringo clan, Minako Ringo, was the most skilled jonin in medical ninjutsu in the Hidden Mist village at that time. Many of the water-style medical ninjutsu that China no Kizuna learned were created by her. As a result, she was appointed by the 3rd Mizukage Bing as the director of the Hidden Mist Hospital, responsible for establishing the medical system of the Hidden Mist village. After more than 10 years of development, Kirigakure's medical system has been greatly improved, and medical ninjutsu has also made great progress. Although there is still a big gap compared to Konoha, Kirigakure now has the ability to heal the serious injuries suffered by Seiji's father, Kagaya Genji. The medical system of Konoha village is not very perfect at present. During the Second Ninja War, Tsunade proposed the training of medical ninjas and the deployment of medical ninjas in each team, but it was not adopted. After the war, when Konoha found that the casualties were too heavy, it gradually stipulated that each team carrying out the mission should be equipped with a medical ninja, and then each ninja village followed suit. However, at the time of the Second Ninja War, Tsunade was already a famous medical ninja in the ninja world, and Konoha's overall medical strength, whether it was the strength of medical ninjas or the development of Konoha Hospital, was far ahead of other ninja villages. Minako Ringo has an elegant posture, and exudes a sense of calmness and confidence in her every move. He smiled gently at the people in the room and answered confidently, Elder Harasame's medical skills are very good. If it weren't for his timely treatment, I'm afraid the 3 of them would have been left with irreversible injuries by the corrosive power of the Vulpix. But please rest assured, Mizukage-sama, they will recover well under my treatment. As the director of the Kirigakure Hospital, she had treated many Anbu members who had fought against the runaway 3 Tails and 6 Tails, so she recognized at a glance that the injuries of the 3 of them were caused by the 6 Tails. Hearing Ringo Minako's answer, Bing nodded with satisfaction. He didn't want the elite troops he had carefully assembled to be scrapped after a single mission. Then you should take a good rest. I'll give you some vacation time. You don't have to be on duty at the Mizukage building during this time. Bing said, and then he took Ringo Minako away. The 3rd Mizukage Bing came not only to visit Seiji and others, but also all the Anbu ninjas who survived the rampage of the tailed beasts and were injured and hospitalized were visited by Bing. It has to be said that although Bing's methods of governing the village were a bit radical and the process of selecting ninjas was a bit cruel, he was indeed a competent Mizukage and deeply loved this village. Chapter 77. After Bing left, they chatted for a while. Seeing that Kuri-shan Kushimaru and the others were tired and a little sleepy, Kingsi took the others and left the ward. At the hospital entrance, Kingsi returned the sword Samehada to Zigwashan Puffer. It must be said that Samehada still likes Kingsi more. When Kingsi returned the sword to him, Samehada reluctantly waved his body to Kingsi, which made Zigwashan Puffer jealous. Although Samehada also listened to him, he had never been so clingy to him. He could only sigh and say, "You are worthy of being the captain." Afterwards, the few of them separated, and their vacation began. When Kingsi returned home, he learned that his grandfather Yuanshi was invited by Elder Chenyu to discuss something. He understood that it was related to the tailed beasts, so Kingsi returned to his room. It's harvest time. Kingsi calmed down and began to carefully sense the situation in his body. After absorbing and assimilating a part of the 6 Tails chakra, and with the awakening of his eye technique, Kingsi's current chakra amount is nearly 10 times more than his original amount. It has now far exceeded 100 calories and is still growing all the time. Moreover, his physical condition has been further enhanced. The activity of cells in his body is much higher than before, and he is gradually moving towards a complete immortal body. This battle with Vulpix is definitely an important opportunity for Kingxi. Kingxi can feel that his strength has entered a period of rapid growth. Then the next step is to see what kind of eye technique I have awakened. Kingxi sat cross-legged on the bed, and chakra began to flow slowly to his eyes. Under the effect of chakra, Kingxi's eyes gradually changed. The inky black conjunctiva is like the night sky, exuding a strange charm, while the light blue eyeballs are like the morning sky, giving a sense of tranquility and serenity at first glance. These eyes seemed both enchanting and fascinating. They had a unique and charming allure, as if they contained endless mysteries and powers. His vision suddenly widened and became clearer, allowing him to see all the subtle changes around him. And like the Byakugan, he had the ability to see through objects, able to see the hidden structure behind them. More importantly, everything that Kingxi saw was in its original color, not just black and white like the Byakugan. With the continuous infusion of chakra, the distance that Kingxi's eyes could see was constantly extending, and finally stopped at 10 kilometers. Kingxi also had a hunch that as he became more familiar with and developed his eyes, he would be able to see even farther. Qing's casually formed a seal and created a water mirror in front of him. The water mirror clearly reflected the appearance of Kingxi's eyes. When Kingxi saw the appearance of his own eyes, his breath couldn't help but be choked. Ishaiki's memory contained information about these eyes. This is, the pure eye. Kingxi muttered to himself, the eye of hope and destiny. Like Ishaiki's black eyes, the pure eyes awakened by CG are also mutated from the Byakugan of the Otsutsuki clan, and are also the eyes awakened by the right eye of Boruto Uzumaki, the future protagonist of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations. Although it is a mutation of the Byakugan, the ability of the pure eye is not weak at all. In the Otsutsuki clan, all Otsutsuki who possess the pure eye are powerful beings. Kingxi carefully experienced his pure eye. Thanks to the awakening of the pure eye, his control over his body and chakra was greatly improved. Perhaps soon he would be able to do the same as Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha in the past, and make whatever he shouted come true by clapping his hands, and perform most of the ninjutsu without making hand seals. These two big guys also need to make hand seals. I specifically looked through their battle scenes. Uchiha Madara's Gohyumetsu didn't make any hand seals, but Gohyumetsushi did. Hashirama Senju's Wood Dragon Technique, Flower Tree World Advent, and Myojinman all required hand seals. And then there was the most outrageous one. His ultimate move, True Thousand Hands, didn't even require getting close. It could be activated directly by clapping his hands. As Kingxi continued to explore the pure eye, he gradually became vaguely aware of the pupil technique contained in his eyes. What made CG quite happy was that he inherited both abilities of Otsutsuki Ishaiki, and even became more powerful based on Ishaiki's abilities. The pupil power flowed, and Qing's eye subconsciously activated the pupil technique of his right eye. The right eye lit up slightly, and Kingxi's figure gradually blurred and then disappeared. I saw a lot of people arguing about whether Otsutsuki Ishaiki's eyes are the Rinnegan, and the relationship between the 10 tails, the divine tree, and the different forms. I checked the official book and sorted it out and posted it while I was writing about the awakening of the protagonist's eyes. First of all, let's talk about the first question. The official has officially announced the setting that Otsutsuki Ishaiki's eyes are not the Rinnegan, but a completely new type of eyes, named the black eyes. It is a pupil technique that originated from the Otsutsuki clan and is speculated to be a mutation of the Byakugan. In Boruto Naruto New Generations, the owners of the black eyes are Ishaiki Otsutsuki and Kawaki, who inherited his wedge. They possess two kinds of eye techniques called Shoni Bikona and Meiko Kyuden. At the same time, these two abilities are also divine techniques that can be learned, although basically no one can learn them. The strength of the pupil power determines the strength of these two eye techniques. Otsutsuki Ishaiki's black eyes have 8 black lines, while Kawaki in the youth chapter only has 4. The effect is much worse than Ishaiki's. The speed is very slow, and he can't dodge attacks or hit people. 3 years later in the youth chapter, Kawaki's pupil power continued to grow, and finally reached the same 8 black lines as Ishaiki. This book does not write about Boruto, and does not involve divine arts. The concept of divine arts will no longer be mentioned in the following text. These two abilities are set as pupil techniques. Then comes the second question. According to the official book, the 10 Tails is a creature unique to the Otsutsuki clan. The 10 Tails is both the sapling of the sacred tree and the origin of chakra. Later in the sequel Boruto Naruto New Generations, the relevant settings and origins of the Ten Tails and the sacred tree were further supplemented. When the Otsutsuki clan invade other planets, they always go in groups of two, one as the guardian and the other as the protected. After the Otsutsuki enter a planet, they will first plant the Ten-Tail seedling on the ground. The Otsutsuki of low status will be used as a living sacrifice to let the Ten-Tails young eat their bodies. After eating the Otsutsuki's body, the Ten-Tails young will quickly transform into a sacred tree. The roots of the sacred tree will then quickly spread to every corner of the planet, absorbing the energy of the planet. The protected will wait on the side for the sacred tree to finally produce the chakra fruit, and then bring the chakra fruit back to the Otsutsuki clan. So based on the official settings, the whole process is very clear. Ten-tail juvenile, God tree, produces chakra fruit, God tree, loses chakra fruit, ten-tail complete form, outer path demon statue, loses chakra. Therefore, the ten-tails that Otsutsuki Ishiki possesses should be the earliest juvenile form. Ishiki has never eaten the chakra fruit, so there is no way he can possess the Rin-Egan, which is the ability brought by the ten-tails. The ten-tails that Kaguya Otsutsuki possessed was the complete ten-tails that was transformed from the divine tree after Kaguya ate the chakra fruit that she was supposed to bring back to the Otsutsuki clan. Chapter 78. Let me first introduce the Pure Eye. The relevant settings of the Pure Eye come from the original plot of the official animation, and there is no explanation in the Boruto comics. The Pure Eye is a variation of the Byakugan. It possesses the basic abilities of the Byakugan, and also has abilities related to time and space. Otsutsuki Tonari told Boruto Uzumaki stream the name Pure Eye and called it the Eye of Hope and the Eye of Destiny. When Otsutsuki Urashiki was catching the One Tail in the desert, he had a fight with Uzumaki Boruto and others who came to support him. He recognized Boruto's special eye as the Pure Eye and said, "That's your Pure Eye? This is difficult." So it can be seen from this that the Otsutsuki clan has information about the Pure Eye, and the ability of the Pure Eye or the fighting power of the owner makes Otsutsuki Urashiki very afraid. The picture is uploaded in the author's comments section. I don't know if you can see it. In a different space, in the Otsutsuki ruins belonging to Otsutsuki Ishiki, Seiji's figure quietly emerged accompanied by a ripple in space. What is this? Ching Si looked rather embarrassed, and shook his head vigorously, trying to get rid of the dizzy feeling. It was his first time experiencing space teleportation, and he was still a little uncomfortable, as if he had drunk fake wine and was dazed. The power of the newly awakened Pure Eye is still limited after all. If he was teleporting within the ninja world, the consumption of eye power might be bearable. However, Kingxi directly teleported himself to a distant and different space, and most of his eye power was consumed. Kingxi, who had not yet mastered the Pure Eye, was forced to temporarily close it. After a while, Kingxi got rid of the discomfort and began to look around carefully. He needed to determine where he was teleported to by the eye technique called Takamagahara contained in his right eye, and whether there were any potential threats in this space. The entire alien space was filled with a layer of mysterious light, flickering occasionally, as if silently telling some story. Ching Si looked around and his eyes fell on the towering walls. He was surprised to find that the walls were engraved with strange runes, which exuded an ancient and mysterious atmosphere. Kingji quickly recognized where this place was in his memory. It was the different space that Otsutsuki Ishiki used to house the young ten-tails that he brought from his family. Having already used Takamagahara once subconsciously, CG quickly understood the effect of his right eye's pupil technique. The eye technique Takamagahara inherits the effect of the eye technique Daikokyuden of Otsutsuki Ishiki's black eyes. It can not only teleport people or objects to a different dimension where time is still connected to the eyes, but also summon people or objects in the space instantly at any time. Moreover, it combines the time and space abilities of the Pure Eye itself on the basis of the eye technique Daikokyuden, and derives the ability to locate through the Takamagahara space with a time-stopping effect, and to teleport arbitrarily to a place marked with eye power. Yes, Otsutsuki Ishiki's Daikokyuden space has now become Seiji's Takamagahara space. Takamagahara first appeared in Japanese mythology as the birthplace of the three original gods at the beginning of heaven and earth, and it is of a very high status. The Kojiki records that when heaven and earth were first created, a god was created in Takamagahara, whose name was Ame no Mikami no Chushujin, followed by Takamikami no Sakami no Hakami, and then Kamikami no Sakami no Hakami. Later, after Amaterasu Omikami, one of the three noble sons, was born, she ruled Takamagahara. This different space belonging to Otsutsuki Ishiki is filled with Ishiki's chakra. This is why CG subconsciously used the eye technique and was teleported to this space. At this time, a huge noise attracted King Si's attention. He walked closer and saw a giant beast imprisoned in the shadow of the ruins. Its body size was roughly the same as the complete Vulpix, with jagged thorns on its back, a huge single eye in the form of the Rin-Egan, and 10 tails behind it. It was the young 10-tailed beast of Otsutsuki Ishiki. Kyoji looked at the 10 tails in front of him and couldn't help but smile. He finally got the most important legacy left by Otsutsuki Ishiki. Coming close to the 10 tails, looking at the imprisoned young 10 tails, King Si's body suddenly began to tremble inexplicably, and he felt a strong desire surge in his heart. This desire came from the 10 tails chakra, as if it was an instinctive reaction of the blood. Kyoji learned from his memory the method of Otsutsuki Ishiki and began to try to absorb a small amount of the 10 tails chakra. It was just a very small trace of the 10 tails chakra, but after entering Kyoji's body, it immediately began to blend and combine with Kyoji's own chakra. Before this, King Si's chakra had passed the initial period of rapid growth and gradually entered a slow and steady growth stage. However, at this moment, this growth trend changed again, and once again showed an astonishing surge. As if it was a ignited gunpowder barrel, the chakra in King Si's body surged like a volcanic eruption, and King Si's chakra amount continued to rise at an astonishing speed. At the same time, the pupil power contained in the pure eye was recovering at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it replenished the previous consumption, and then began to grow as fast as a rocket-like chakra. The growth rate of this eye power is in no way inferior to the speed of chakra improvement. The eye power and chakra echo each other, further accelerating the speed of improvement. In this change that can be called a miracle, King Si can clearly feel that his strength is constantly getting stronger, as if endless power is constantly emerging. Chapter 79. King Si stood silently in front of the young 10 tails, ignoring the restless little 10 tails, his mind completely immersed in the rapid growth of chakra and eye power. After a long time, the growth of chakra and pupil power began to gradually slow down. The growth of pupil power had begun to become slow at this time. If there was no external force, it would basically increase slowly over time. However, in terms of the amount of chakra, although the growth rate slowed down, it was still increasing steadily. King Si's strength finally entered a period of rapid growth. After carefully sensing his own situation, King Si felt a little inflated for a moment. His strength had already firmly reached the level of cage, and it was a relatively strong cage level. The amount of chakra increased dramatically, and he awakened his pure eye. Although he had not yet mastered it, King Si was confident that if he fought against the complete form of the Vulpix again, he would be able to suppress it with a flip of his hand. Furthermore, when Kyoji can use the eye technique as skillfully as Otsutsuki Ishiki, he even feels that his combat power can easily surpass the two great masters of the time, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Name, Otsutsuki CG. Age, 16, born on February 19, 2 in Kirigakure. Height, 183 cm. Weight, XNUMX kg. Ninja registration number, 005666. Strength, cage level, chakra volume 0.48 column and still growing. Mission experience, D level 0 times, C level 0 times, B level 22 times, A level 60 times, S level 38 times. Chakra attributes, wind, thunder, water, fire, earth, yin, yang. Mastered ninjutsu, wind style ninjutsu 50, lightning style ninjutsu 50, water style ninjutsu 50, fire style ninjutsu 50, earth style ninjutsu 50, yin style ninjutsu 3, yang style ninjutsu 2, yin and yang style ninjutsu 3. Bloodline limit, corpse vein, pure eye, pupil technique, Takamagahara, nicknamed Bikon. He raised his head to look at the huge little 10 tails in front of him. At this time, the 10 tails one eye also looked at King Si, and the Rin-Egan with Megatama stared at King Si motionlessly. After confirming through eye contact, I know that this is the person I'm waiting for. This is probably what the 10 tails is thinking. The chakra flowed slightly, transforming into wind attribute and surrounding King Si's body. King Si's figure slowly floated up and came in front of the 10 tails. The man and the tailed beast stared at each other and fell into silence for a while. King Si floated in the air, staring quietly at the Megatama Samsara eye in front of him, which had a bit of tyranny. Just now, he successfully absorbed a trace of the 10 tails chakra, and the integration of this trace of chakra created a wonderful resonance between him and the 10 tails. This resonance allowed Kingxi to vaguely feel the voice deep in the heart of the little Jobi at this moment, but it was only a vague perception. He tried to understand and capture those faint thoughts, but it seemed as if he was in a fog and elusive. Kingxi concentrated his energy and tried hard to understand the message that Xiao Juwei wanted to express. Time passed minute by minute, and finally, Kingxi felt what the little Jobi wanted to convey. Hungry. Kingxi suddenly realized, yes, this little ten tails was forcibly imprisoned here by Otsutsuki Ishiki, and after Otsutsuki Ishiki was seriously injured, it was used to regularly provide him with chakra to recover from his injuries. The Juhobi's instincts were forcibly suppressed, and with Ishiki constantly sucking its chakra away, it's no wonder that it could only convey the message of hungry. After realizing this, Kyoji began to try to communicate with the ten tails through chakra. He kept conveying his thoughts, promising not to absorb its chakra again and that he would let it eat an Otsutsuki as soon as possible to enter the next form. The little Juhobi felt the message conveyed by Kingxi, and its attitude began to change subtly. The tyrannical intent gradually disappeared from the samsara eye, and finally returned to calm. Its eyes became softer, no longer as hostile as before. After pacifying the ten tails, Kyoji fell back to the ground. It was not that he did not want to untie the ten tails, but he was simply unable to do so with his current strength. After all, Otsutsuki Ishiki was not injured when he imprisoned the ten tails, and the six paths level yin-yang release imprisonment was not something that Kyoji could untie right now. Chakra slowly flowed to the eyes, and the pure eyes opened again. Kingxi, who already knew the effect of the Takamagahara eye technique, couldn't wait to connect to his Takamagahara space. Finally, he no longer had to carry storage scrolls with him. It was simply wonderful to have a different space of his own. In the Takamagahara space, CG was looking at everything around him. Not far away, there were a dozen yin-yang escape black sticks that Otsutsuki Ishiki had made, as well as 6 black yin-yang escape cubes called Uha-ten. Ching Si nodded in satisfaction. The legacy of Ishiki Otsutsuki was really rich. These black sticks and big box can save him a lot of effort. After all, although he has learned how to use yin-yang escape to make black sticks and big box, the efficiency is very poor. With these gifts from Ishiki Otsutsuki, at least at this stage of the battle, it should be enough for Ching Si to use. Chapter 80. In Takamagahara, Kingxi used the powerful space-time ability of the Pure Eye to isolate a room-sized space. This unique space was used by him to store his personal belongings. In this little world that belonged to him, Kingxi took out the double swords, Aoi, from the ninja sword summoning scroll and placed them here, so that he could take them out quickly at any time when needed in battle. Kingxi's Shikatsukan battle style determines that he is not suitable for carrying the flounder on his back. Although there was a ninja sword summoning scroll that could store the flounder, it takes time to take it out of the scroll. And in the intense and ever-changing battles between ninjas, the enemy may not generously give Kingxi enough time to take out the flounder. The Takamagahara eye technique really perfectly solved Kingxi's pain points. After everything was arranged, Ching Si focused his attention on the scattered black sticks and the big box sky, and activated the pupil technique of his left eye, Xiaoming Biguna. Where Ching Si's eyes were fixed, the black sticks and the big box sky began to shrink rapidly, and finally shrank to the point where they were invisible to the naked eye. Kingxi shook his head, not very satisfied with the speed. The gap with Ishiki is really huge. With this speed, I can only catch the enemy by surprise, and it can't be used continuously. I still need to practice diligently, and strive to achieve the level of instant shrinking and enlargement of Otsutsuki Ishiki as soon as possible, and shorten the interval between launching the eye technique as much as possible. Kingxi murmured. After saying this, CG activated Takamagahara again and returned to his room. What Kingxi didn't know was that when he used the Pure Eye to teleport to the Otsutsuki ruins, because it was subconscious and it was his first time using Takamagahara, he didn't control it much, and the dissipated Pure Eye power mixed with the unique breath of the Otsutsuki awakened a soul sleeping far away on the moon. Is this the aura of the Pure Eye? The soul that was awakened by the aura emitted by Ching Si muttered to itself, "It has been 1,000 years, and I didn't expect that someone among my descendants would actually awaken the Pure Eye. This person is none other than Otsutsuki Hamura, the common ancestor of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon and the Hyuga and Kagaya clans in the ninja world." If Otsutsuki Tonari knew about the Pure Eye, it makes no sense that Otsutsuki Hamura, as the ancestor, would not know about it. It is likely that Otsutsuki Hamura left behind this information, and then it was passed down among the Otsutsuki clan on the moon. Because he is a descendant of Otsutsuki Hamura, when Seiji's strong Otsutsuki aura, which far exceeds that of other descendants, mixed with the aura of the pure eye, was emitted, Otsutsuki Hamura's soul was awakened from its 1,000-year slumber. For Otsutsuki Hamura, who is at the Six Paths level and not just an ordinary Six Paths level, even though he has abandoned his physical body and only remains in the form of a soul, he can still rely on the subtle blood connection to clearly feel the special fluctuations of the pure eye from the distant ninja world. Admittedly, compared to his brother, the Six Paths sage Otsutsuki Hago Romo, who has more powerful strength and has sealed the 10 tails of his mother Otsutsuki Kagaya in his body, Otsutsuki Hamura's overall strength is slightly inferior. But it must be said and acknowledged that every Six Paths level character should not be underestimated. Even though Hamura's strength has not reached the level of the Six Paths sage Otsutsuki Hago Romo, his soul, which has reached the strength of the Six Paths, still gives him the ability to partially interfere with the real world. It's just that his soul has been sleeping inside the moon, far away from the ninja realm, and he is out of reach of the ninja realm. Compared to Otsutsuki Hago Romo in the Pure Land, he does not have the ability to always pay attention to the ninja realm and interfere at any time like Otsutsuki Hago Romo. The ninja world, what a nostalgic place. Otsutsuki Hamura sighed, I hope he can protect the ninja world in the future. The appearance of Kyoji was a small surprise to Otsutsuki Hamura. After all, in terms of potential, there had not been any extremely powerful people among his descendants in the past 1,000 years. They were far inferior to the descendants of his brother Otsutsuki Hamura. He didn't think about it anymore. Since he chose to come to the moon after everything was over out of guilt for sealing his mother Kagaya Otsutsuki and also to guard the Gaiden statue, the shell of the 10 tails, he didn't want to interfere in the ninja world anymore. Let it develop on its own. After this last thought, Otsutsuki Hamura's soul fell into sleep again. Chapter 81. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye it is already the end of the 35th year of Kirigakure. In the past 1 month or less than 2 months, Kingxi has been on vacation. If this happened in modern times, the third Mizukage Bing would definitely be elected as the best leader of the year. During this period, apart from occasionally gathering with Chino Kizuna and Yagura Kiruta when they had no missions, and regularly visiting his 3 subordinates who were recuperating in the Kirigakure hospital, Kyoji basically stayed at home to practice, focusing on continuously improving his control over the pure eye and increasing the speed and effectiveness of his pupil techniques. The last day of the 35th year of Kirigakure. On this day, Kingxi was practicing in his room as usual after having breakfast with his grandfather Yuanchi. Young name Vigana. Kingxi was constantly using the pupil technique of his left eye to repeatedly enlarge and shrink the black stick in his hand. The speed was much faster than when he had just awakened the pure eye, so there was no problem using it in actual combat. At this time, the loud cry of the ninja eagle was heard outside. War preparation call. Kingxi's heart moved. It seemed that there should be the latest results on the Yuyan battlefield. Some time ago, information from the underground gold exchange showed that the second large-scale decisive battle between the Hidden Rain Village and the Hidden Sand Village ended in a draw. Let's go. Little Kingxi. Kingxi dressed neatly and walked out of the room. He saw his grandfather Yuanchi and the bodyguard Chuan Bingui were already ready to go. The Hidden Mist Village, the Mizukage building, the meeting room. When they arrived at the door of the conference room, Kingxi and Yuanchi separated. Yuanchi entered the conference room while Kingxi went to the Mizukage's office to meet the third Mizukage Bing. As the captain of the third Mizukage's shadow guard, he should have followed Bing at this time. Pushing open the door of the Mizukage's office, Kingxi saw the other 6 people standing behind the third Mizukage Bing, each carrying their own ninja swords on their backs. Let's go, it's time to tell others that we, Kirigakure, are ready to take action. Bing saw Kingxi coming, nodded at him, then stood up from his seat, told the 7 of them the purpose of this call, and then led them to the meeting room. Bing walked into the conference room, followed by the 7 ninja swordsmen with solemn looks on their faces. Seeing the arrival of the Mizukage, the noisy discussions in the conference room suddenly became quiet. All the people present stared at the third Mizukage Bing with burning eyes, hoping to hear news that would shock them. Kingxi glanced at the people present and saw his enemy Kagaya Musashi at a glance. He suppressed his eagerness for revenge. Kingxi knew that he should focus on the village's mission first. His strength had surpassed Kagaya Musashi, and he could kill him at any time as long as there was a chance in the future. Kagaya Musashi, who was sitting below, felt a chill on her neck for no reason, but when she looked around, she didn't find anything wrong. The leader of the Rain Village, Hanzo, has made a request to us, the Kirigakure, offering a reward of 250 million taels, hoping that we, the Kirigakure, will send elite troops to participate in the war in the form of hired ninjas to help the Rain Village deal with the Sand Village and guard against the Iwagakure village. Intelligence shows that the Iwagakure village has completed the war mobilization and is ready to intervene in the war at any time. Bing's words echoed throughout the conference room. Iwagakure village is our old enemy. The previous Mizukage died because of Iwagakure village in the last Ninja World War. Moreover, the funding that the daimyo has given us Kirigakure village has not been very generous in recent years, making it increasingly difficult for us to train new talents. The 250 million taels of reward is very important to the development of the village, so I agreed to it. Bing's expression and tone became solemn. It turns out that after the first decisive battle with Sand Village, the Hidden Rain Village, led by Hanzo, fought two more large-scale decisive battles. After the first battle, Cho finally cracked the poison of Hanzo's salamander and developed the formula of the antidote, which gave the Sand Village a lot of confidence. After all, Hanzo's most lethal weapon on the battlefield was his poison. Moreover, during the Second World War, all the Sand Ninjas resisted the poisonous gas of the salamander and did not retreat, which allowed Cho to finally analyze the weakness that it takes 5 minutes for the salamander to refill its body with poisonous gas. This allowed the Sand Ninjas to arrange various targeted tactics based on this. Cho is worthy of the title of Hanzo's nemesis. This arrangement gave Hanzo a headache. So in the Third War, Cho paid the price of an arm and successfully held Hanzo within 5 minutes while the salamander was filling the poison gas. The Sand Village ninjas took advantage of the situation and launched a large-scale counterattack under the leadership of Ebizo. After a fierce battle, it was the Sand Village that was outnumbered that gained the upper hand, and the Rain Village was beaten back. Hanzo's original plan to quickly defeat the Sand Village and then fight a decisive battle with Konoha can be said to have completely failed. Hanzo had no choice but to launch war mercenaries at the same time to the Cloud Village in the Land of Lightning and the Mist Village in the Land of Water, which did not border the Land of Rain and had no conflicts of interest with it. Chapter 82. After paying the price of his ninjutsu and swordsmanship knowledge as well as money, Hanzo successfully invited the Hidden Cloud and Hidden Mist to join the war as hired soldiers. But this actually played into the hands of the two villages. After all, the most important part of their plot to take over the Land of Whirlpools and the Uzumaki clan was to rely on Hanzo's Omegakure to tie up most of Konoha's forces on the battlefield. Therefore, Hanzo and his Omegakure must not be defeated by Tsunagakure at this time. To assist the Hidden Rain Village in its war mission, I plan to send only the 7 ninja swordsmen. Bing stated his decision. All 7 of them have now attained the strength of Jonin. They can be said to be the true elite force of our Hidden Mist Village. That's right. After the battle with the Vulpix, the strength of the remaining 6 people has also improved, especially Kurisan Kushimaru, Mori Shinpeki and Biwajozo, who originally had strength not yet reached the level of Jonin. After recovering from their injuries, they practiced for a week or 2, and their chakra levels quickly reached the Jonin level. With the blessing of the ninja sword, they can even fight against elite Jonin. Others also have tasks. A part of the ninja troops will set off first to capture the Bear Country as our forward base for the subsequent attack on the Whirlpool Country. I heard that there is a small ninja village called Star Ninja Village in the Bear Country, and their leader actually dares to call himself a shadow. Let's destroy him. Bing continued to make arrangements, his words full of coldness. The Anbu have completed the collection of intelligence on the Bear Country and will set off early tomorrow morning. Meeting adjourned. After Bing finished speaking, he took Kingxi and the others back to the Mizukage's office. Yes. All the participants responded excitedly. The Ninja World War had already broken out for more than a year, and Kirigakure was finally coming to an end. Bing motioned Kingxi to follow him into the office and asked the others to wait outside as he wanted to discuss some matters with Kingxi alone. Kingxi followed Bing into the office. Bing walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, put his hands behind his back, looked at the scene outside the window, and did not speak for a while. This was the village for which he had fought all his life. After a moment's silence, Bing spoke to Kingxi and said, "For this mission, I grant you the right to make decisions on the spot. Although Hanzo is unlikely to pit our Kirigakure, we still have to be on guard. There is not much hatred between us and the Sand Village. You only need to be responsible for stopping some of the Sand Village's elite ninjas and let the Rain Village gain the upper hand. Don't kill them unless it is absolutely necessary. Prioritize preserving your strength. The subsequent actions of the Whirlpool Country will still need you, but the specific situation depends on your on-site judgment. Kingxi nodded to show that he understood. Our main goal is to help Hanzhou gain an advantage in the decisive battle with the Sand Village, and try to force the Sand Village to sign a ceasefire agreement, so that the Rain Village can free up its hands to fight Konoha with all its strength. You don't have to worry about the Uegakure village. The Reikage has already sent me a letter. They, the Cloud Village, will be responsible for watching over the Uegakure village. So the mission of the 7 of you is to help the Rain Village win the war against the Sand Village. Bing continued to explain. Please rest assured, Lord Mizukage, this is all for Kirigakure. CG replied firmly. Go ahead, set off now, and let the ninja world hear the name of us, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, as soon as possible. Let all ninjas be awed when they hear the name of us, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. In the Frost Country, in the mountain cemetery, deep underground, is Uchiha Madara's base. Lord Madara. A white Zetsu emerged from the ground and awakened the sleeping Uchiha Madara. What's the matter? An old but domineering voice came, and Uchiha Madara woke up. Hanzhou of the Omegakure tribe has been unable to attack Sand Village for a long time, so he sent out war offers to both Kumigakure and Kirigakure. Kumigakure has already accepted Hanzhou's offer and is determined to join the war, responsible for dealing with Uegakure. Our intelligence on Kirigakure is a little weaker, but given the character of the 3rd Mizukage, Kirigakure will not let go of this opportunity, and it is very likely that they will take action against the Land of Whirlpools. White Zetsu calmly told Uchiha Madara the intelligence they had obtained. Oh, this pathetic world. Hashirama, look, this is the peace you wish for. Uchiha Madara sneered, then said to himself, let chaos reign, this awful world. Hashirama. I will prove that I am right. Keep an eye on the Whirlpool country. If Kumigakure and Mist Village start to attack the Whirlpool country, wake me up in time. The damn Uzumaki clan should never appear in the ninja world again. Uchiha Madara continued, also, collect information about the 3rd Mizukage and his movements. The Mist Village is far away from the mainland and is very suitable as a base. If I can control the 3rd Mizukage and make the entire Mist Village work for me, then my plan can be implemented better. Uchiha Madara murmured, and his devilish whisper echoed throughout the underground space. Yes. Lord Madara, I will follow your will. White Zetsu responded, his body slowly sinking into the ground, and the mayfly technique was activated. Uchiha Madara recalled every detail of his time with Senju Hashirama in his mind, and then fell into a deep sleep again in the beautiful memories of him and Senju Hashirama. Chapter 83. I don't get off work until after 10 o'clock these days, so I really can't write more. I'm sorry. January of the 36th year of Kirigakure, the battlefield of the Land of Rain. After nearly half a month of intensive travel, Kingxi and his 7 companions finally arrived at the camp of the Hidden Rain Village. In fact, they could have arrived at a faster speed, but after the outbreak of the Ninja World War, Konoha was attacked by Hanzhou at the beginning, which led to the invasion of the heart of the Fire Country. This made the Fire Country daimyo extremely embarrassed. Therefore, when the Omegakure ninja was driven out of the Fire Country, Konoha strengthened the patrol and defense within the Fire Country under the strong request of the Fire Country daimyo who threatened military expenditures. The people in the Hidden Mist Village didn't know it yet, but the daimyo of the Fire Country had inadvertently given them an assist, leaving a large number of Konoha ninjas trapped in the territory of the Fire Country, unable to escape. Therefore, Kingxi and others finally had no choice but to take the sea route, detour to the Kingdom of Rivers to land, and arrive at the battlefield of the Kingdom of Rains. After arriving at the Omegakure camp, CG first went to see Hanzhou the Salamander. Hanzhou-sama, I am CG, the captain of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist Village. CG first introduced himself to Hanzhou, then took out a letter written by the 3rd Mizukage Bing and handed it to Hanzhou. This is a letter from our Mizukage to you. Hanzhou took the letter, opened it, and quickly read through it. He understood. It seems that the Mizukage sent the most elite troops from Kirigakure. This money was not wasted. So Hanzhou said to CG, we have already deployed our Rain Village for the decisive battle against Sand Village, and we are just waiting for your arrival. Tomorrow morning, we will launch a full-scale attack. The 7 of you will be responsible for decapitating the elite ninjas of Sand Village. Is that okay? No problem. Ching Si agreed without hesitation and turned to leave. He also wanted to go and explain tomorrow's battle to the others. Of course, they could agree to Hanzhou, but how they would act on the battlefield was up to them. After returning to the tent specially prepared for them in the hidden rain village, King Si said to them, "For tomorrow's battle, we, the 7 ninja swordsmen, will act freely, and our target will be the elite ninjas of the hidden sand village. Before we set off, the Mizukage-sama told me not to kill them unless necessary, and just cripple them or make them lose their combat effectiveness. Tomorrow I will act alone. Kushimaru and Jinpachi will be in charge of dealing with the puppeteer of Tsunagakure. Ziguishin and Ying will act together. The two of you should pay attention to the coordination between lightning and water styles. Tusuo and Jozo will act together. The two of you should aim to deal with the sand-manipulating ninja of Tsunagakure. This will be the case for now. If there are other situations, you should be prepared to respond on the battlefield tomorrow." The next day, under the leadership of Hanzo, the Rain Village ninjas gathered again, and the time for a decisive battle with the Sand Village has come. On the Tsunagakure side, under the leadership of Cho and Ebizo, they were on high alert. "You who wears the snorkel, today is the day you die." Cho shouted to Hanzo confidently, "Everyone in Kirigakure, don't hide. I know Hanzo is asking you for help." Hearing Chiyo's shout, Hanzo had a bad feeling in his heart. Siji, who was standing next to him, also stared at Hanzo with a bad look. "My goodness, the war hasn't even started yet, and the information that Kirigakure will send people to participate in the war has been leaked." Since Tsunagakure already knew that people from Kirigakure were coming, and they were still so confident in fighting, it could only mean that they had also received support. However, the arrow has been on the string and must be shot. The two armies are already facing each other, and Hanzo cannot let everyone retreat at this time. After a moment of silence, Hanzo replied, "You are a puppeteer. There is no point in talking anymore. Just use whatever means you have." Cho didn't say anything else, but smiled mysteriously, raised the puppet prosthesis in her right hand, shot out chakra rays, and directly summoned her own puppet. White secret technique, Chikamatsu 10 people. Seeing Chiyo's actions, the sand ninjas behind her also prepared for battle. "Mr. Hanzo, since the sand village is already prepared, let's attack first. Watermelon Mountain, give them a big one and change the battlefield environment. The rest of you act according to the original plan." King Si's face was not very good, but it was blocked by the mask, so no one could see it. However, since they were exposed before the battle, there was no need to hide it anymore. Upon hearing King Si's order, the Ziguishin puffer ghost jumped out of the formation and quickly formed seals with both hands. "Who will build the water escape dam?" The Ziguishin puffer ghost did not choose the conventional method of using a large explosive water wave to form a giant water prison. Instead, it switched to a water wave impact mode to create a more suitable terrain for water escape by changing the battlefield environment. A huge amount of water was spewed out from the mouth of the Watermelon Mountain puffer demon, forming a huge wave, sweeping towards the Sand Village ninjas on the opposite side like a tidal wave. In the cloudy, rainy, and humid environment of the rain country, the use of water jutsu is like adding wings to a tiger. Seeing that the Kirigakure ninja who came to support was so powerful and used A-level water jutsu very easily, the rain ninjas behind could not help but be shocked and their morale suddenly soared. Seeing his allies so powerful, Hanzo swung his sickle forward and said, "Follow me." After receiving the order from their leader, a group of rain ninjas followed Hanzo and began to charge towards Sand Ninja along the water force of the great explosion wave. "Let's go too, follow Hanzo." King Si saw that Hanzo had already gone up, so he called on everyone to charge forward with Hanzo. The range of this technique is very large. Prepare for defense. Chiyo's face was slightly solemn. She didn't expect that the people sent by the Hidden Mist Village were so powerful and they started with a water-based jutsu of such a large scale. Judging from the scale of this water escape, the Hidden Mist Village must have sent all its best forces. If Cho didn't know the third Mizukage, Bing, she would have thought it was the Mizukage who came. Chapter 84. Just when the Sand Village ninjas were a little panicked because of seeing the Ziguishin puffer demon's extraordinary water escape technique, a calm and steady voice came from behind. "Everyone retreat. Raza, prepare for defense." That's right, the owner of the voice was the third Kazekage Tessa, who had hidden his identity and secretly came to the front line, preparing to give Hanzo a surprise. A few days ago, Tsunagakure received secret information that the Hidden Rain Village hired ninjas from the Hidden Mist Village to join the war. Cho, who also wanted to end the war with the Hidden Rain Village, immediately sent the information back to the Hidden Rain Village. So the third Kazekage Tessa and his disciple Raza secretly came to the front line, ready to give Hanzo a big wave and catch him by surprise. The third Kazekage Tisha lifted up the black robe that he used to disguise his identity and the scarf wrapped around his head, revealing the classic white Kazekage robe he was wearing underneath and his majestic face. Beside him, Raza also took off his disguise, revealing a black ninja outfit and brown hair, which was rare in the Sand Village. It's Lord Kazekage and Lord Raza. Great, Lord Kazekage is here too. We will win. We will win. When they saw the third Kazekage Tessa appear, the Sunagakure ninjas on the battlefield cheered and their morale soared. This is the role of the cage of the village as a spiritual symbol. Magnetic escape sand iron wall. Magnetic escape aventurin wall. Tisha and Luasha touched the ground with their hands, chakra surged wildly, and two huge black and gold sand walls rose from the ground, firmly blocking the surging waves. Oh no! The Kazekage is coming. Kingxi, who was charging, saw the appearance of iron sand and immediately became alarmed. He then turned his gaze to Raza, short brown hair, the same magnetic ninjutsu as the third Kazekage, using gold sand. This is the third Kazekage's disciple Raza. Leave the third Kazekage to me, Hanzo, you should continue to fight your old rival Cho. Kyoshi said quickly to Hanzo. Hanzo nodded and headed straight for Cho. Kingxi then ordered the rest of the ninja swordsmen, the battle plan has changed. Kushimaru, Jinpachi, Tusu, and Jozo, the four of you go deal with Ebizo, Zigwashan, and Ying go deal with Kazekage's disciple Raza. Yes. Everyone responded in unison, and then rushed towards their target. As Kingxi ran, his momentum became higher and higher, and his murderous aura continued to gather, pointing directly at the third Kazekage Tisha. Feeling Kingxi's aura, the third Kazekage looked a little solemn. He did not recognize Kingxi's identity, but he could clearly sense that in terms of aura alone, Kingxi was not weaker than him. Corpse bone vein 10-finger piercing bullet. Kingxi stretched out his left hand forward, and countless bone bullets continuously flew out from his fingertips, shooting towards the position of the third Kazekage Tisha at high speed. Tisha's eyes focused. Corpse bone vein? Very good, the ninjas of the Hyuga clan are relatively easy for me to deal with. At the same time, Tisha's brain was spinning rapidly, trying to identify Kingxi's identity through the information about the Hyuga clan in his mind. With a wave of his iron sand hand, the scattered iron sand on the ground condensed into a solid shield in front of him, blocking all of Kingxi's attacks. After blocking Kingxi's attack, the black iron sand scattered on the ground again after losing the chakra support of the iron sand. Kingxi had a clue in his mind. The exploratory attack just now had roughly tested the defense speed and defense power of the sand iron. Then he closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his pure eyes were already open. The power of his eyes exploded, and the space in front began to distort slightly under the space-time ability of the pure eye, causing a vortex of air whirlwind. While running, Kingji formed the tiger seal and then launched a ninjutsu. Fire release storm dance. The high-temperature flame spewed out of the mouth, with the enhancement of the airflow, formed a flame vortex like a flaming snake, spiraling towards the iron sand at an extremely fast speed. The attack had not yet arrived, but the oncoming heat caused the iron sand floating in the air to show signs of melting. Tisha was trying to avoid the attack, and a large amount of iron sand on the ground floated up, forming a pair of huge wings behind Tisha. Magnetic release Sandy Nai. Tisha flapped his wings behind him and flew into the air, avoiding the attack range of the fire escape. Floating in the air, looking at Kingxi on the ground, Tisha felt very proud. This time, he was using his high power to attack low, and the advantage was on his side. Tisha formed seals with his hands, and the iron sand wings behind him shot out countless iron sand feathers towards Kingxi. The dense feathers kept shooting towards Kingxi. Kingxi, whose fire release missed, looked at the iron sand flying into the air with a slight smile on his face. Of course, he knew that the third Kazekage had the ability to fly, but this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Young name Vigana. The pupil technique of his left eye was activated, and Kingxi shrunk himself at the moment before the attack came, perfectly avoiding the attack of the sand iron feather. Seeing Kingxi suddenly disappear, Tisha was slightly startled and hurriedly looked around for the place where Kingxi might appear. He thought Kingxi used the technique of instant body movement to escape from the attack range. The shrinking Kingxi stared at Tisha in the air, his pupil power began to gather, and the pupil technique of his right eye Takamaji Ehara was activated, and a shrinking large box sky quietly appeared above Tisha's head. As soon as Kingxi's body returned to its original size after escaping from the attack range of the iron sand, he was immediately discovered by the iron sand in the air. The iron sand slightly flapped its wings to adjust its direction and was about to continue its attack. But at this time, Kingxi had already used the eye technique Xiaoning Biguna again, restoring the great boxer to its original size. The giant black cube, carrying a suffocating pressure, smashed towards Tisha like a falling meteorite. At this moment, Tisha, who was floating in the air, had no defense at all against this sudden attack from above his head. You know, in his past cognition, the Hyga clan did not have the ability to fly at all, and even had no ability to attack from a distance except for the 10-finger bullet-piercing ability. The huge box was about to fall heavily on Tisha, and he finally reacted belatedly. However, it was too late to respond now. In fact, if it was any other attack, Tisha's perception would be enough to detect it in advance and react. However, the big box created by Yin Yang Escape has the property of shielding perception, so Tisha was caught off guard by Kingxi. Boom! The big box of iron sand smashed heavily to the ground, stirring up countless smoke and splashes of water. The invincible third Kirigakure has fallen. Chapter 85. Fortunately, Tisha's body was always covered with a layer of iron sand armor formed by magnetic escape, which avoided serious injury. However, he was still inevitably knocked unconscious by this blow, and his internal organs were aching. Tisha was a little angry. He thought it was his fault for being careless and not dodging. After all, he was known as the strongest wind shadow. At this time, Tisha had no idea of the seriousness of the situation. Chakra burst out from his body, and he controlled Tisha to move away the daxiation that was pressing on him, preparing to fight back. Ninja from the Kirigakure. You have succeeded in irritating me. Come and experience the wrath of the Kirigakure. Tisha made an angry declaration to Kingxi with a serious face. Although it is not clear how Kingxi avoided the attack of Sand Iron Feather, it is not a problem to use this kind of super large-scale saturation attack. With his hands forming the seal of no return, Iron Sand immediately launched the ninjutsu. Magnet Release Seiditsu Shijur. A large amount of iron sand appeared in front of the iron sand, and then these iron sands formed countless fine needles and shot towards Kingxi at a high speed. Sand Iron Shijur's attack range is extremely wide, and the attack density is extremely high, like a curtain without any gaps, tightly blocking all possible positions for Kingxi to dodge. In Kingxi's pure vision, the trajectory of Shatetsu Shijur's attack was extremely clear. Kingxi made a judgment in an instant that even if he used the pupil technique Shayana Biguna to shrink himself, he could not guarantee that he could perfectly avoid the saturation attack of Shatetsu Shijur's mode. So Kingxi looked at this attack that could be said to be covering the sky and the sun, calmly put his hands together, chakra surged, and the water vapor around him began to gather around Kingxi frantically. The huge water explosion wave that Zigwashan Puffer Demon just performed has successfully changed the terrain of the battlefield. The battlefield is full of water, and the air in the rain country is already filled with rich water vapor, which makes Kingxi's ninjutsu extremely fast. Water Escape Water Formation Wall. The water flow surrounded Kingxi, and instantly formed an impenetrable water wall that continuously rotated clockwise. As soon as the needle made of sand iron touched the water wall, it was easily removed by the rotating force attached to it. No attack could break through the defense of the water wall. Seeing the iron sand's attack was blocked, he was not surprised at all. The seal in his hand changed accordingly, and a large amount of iron sand was continuously refined from the ground. At the same time, Iron Sand Shijur's attack also stopped. Magnetic Release Sand Iron Triangular Pyramid. Magnetic Style, Iron Sand Cylinder. Magnetic Style, Iron Sand Rectangle. Under the manipulation of iron sand, the high-density iron sand condensed into a large triangular pyramid, a huge cylinder and a huge cuboid. 3 huge iron sand creations were suspended in the air, and then, under the control of the iron sand's magnetic chakra, they crashed into Kingxi at high speed from 3 directions. The huge kinetic energy carried by the giant could not be resisted by the water array wall. Tisha smiled and said, "Young man, what should you do now?" Kingxi made a prompt decision. It would be quite difficult to resist an attack of this scale, so he chose the most labor-saving method. Takamagahara. The power of the pupil flowed in his right eye, and Kingxi's figure began to become blurred. He disappeared from the spot just before the attack came. Tisha's attack missed, and it could be said that it was in vain. The big box that was used to smash the iron sand was not taken back by Kingxi, and Kingxi's figure appeared beside it. The big box had already been marked with pupil power by Kingxi, so it was just right to teleport here to avoid the attack. Although with Kyoji's current pupil power and the development of the pure eye, Takamaji Ehara's teleportation has some speed and time limitations, and cannot move as continuously and quickly as Flying Thunder God, and is not suitable for use in such high intensity and fierce battles. It is more than enough to avoid attacks that are difficult to dodge and defend against. It has just been open for a short time, so the speed is relatively slow and has a CD, which will gradually improve later. In terms of speed, it is probably slower than Kaguya Otsutsuki's Yomi and Ryasaka, and also slower than the movement of a single Kamui. Space-time ninjutsu. This is a bit troublesome, but not a big problem. Tisha muttered to himself when he saw this scene. After dodging the attack, Kingsley breathed a sigh of relief. For ordinary ninjas, unless they are at the level of being able to drive a Gundam, no one would be willing to face the attack of such a giant object directly. However, the magnetic attack is not just that simple. The next second, the giant triangular pyramid, cylinder, and rectangular block whose attacks missed each drew a graceful arc in the air and slammed into Kingsley again. Tisk! Troublesome bloodline limit. Kingsley curled his lips. At this time, he also reacted. At the place where he and the third Kazekage Iron Sand were fighting, after several rounds of attacks by Iron Sand, the Iron Sand was scattered everywhere. With the help of the characteristics of magnetic escape, Iron Sand can locate and track the attack at any time through the Iron Sand near Kingsley, leaving Kingsley with no escape in the end. Chapter 86. In fact, using the Tailed Glory to launch an attack against an attack is a relatively optimal solution, but facing the third Kazekage Iron Sand who has developed the magnetic release to an extremely high level, Kingji does not have enough confidence that he can protect the double sword's Tailed Glory from being affected by the magnetic release chakra. At this moment, Kingsley suddenly remembered the Iron Sand floating in the air when he was facing his fire escape just now. Thanks to the super insight of the pure eye, Kingsley clearly observed the extremely faint signs of melting. He did it as soon as he thought of it. Before the attack came, Kingsley quickly started to make seals. He wanted to melt the Iron Sand directly with extremely high temperature. Although Kingsley was just a liberal arts student in his previous life, he knew that high temperatures above 2000 degrees could melt Iron Sand. In this ninja world with magical chakra power, he can now easily create flames with temperatures over 2000 degrees. It should be reasonable, I'm not sure. I checked the official setting collection. According to the settings of Scorch Release and Melt Release, the temperature is thousands of degrees. There is even more outrageous, the eye technique of Mangeki Sharingan, Amaterasu, is said to be a flame from the center of the sun. It should be tens of millions of degrees. Maybe the sun in the ninja world is different from the earth? Anyway, Amaterasu has never burned a decent person to death, except for White Zetsu, which is not considered a person. A face full of black question marks? Karin was burned by the second pillar for more than 10 seconds, and his clothes were damaged. Uchihamadara's Amaterasu's clothes exploded, and the raikage was burned and his arm was broken. It is really hard to explain. It can only be attributed to the magic of chakra. After 3 simple seals. Fire escape Touk-ku. The fire chakra was constantly compressed in his mouth. Kingsley opened his mouth slightly and spit out a small fireball towards the ground. However, when the fireball landed, the burning range expanded rapidly, forming a surging sea of fire in an instant. Then Kingsley changed the seal with his hands and put his hands together. Wind escape press. What came out of Kingsley's mouth this time was a high-pressure wind ball. As soon as the wind ball appeared, its volume began to expand rapidly, forming a huge storm vortex, and then merged into the sea of fire. The wind fueled the fire, and the temperature of the flames rose rapidly, turning into sky blue in the blink of an eye. Combined ninjutsu, Flame Wind Wave. At this time, the Iron Sand attack controlled by Iron Sand also crashed into the sea of fire, but before the Iron Sand triangular pyramids, cylinders and rectangles could break through the raging sea of fire, they began to melt under the extremely high temperature, and the Iron Sand's attack was once again unsuccessful. Tisha frowned. Although he knew that his Iron Sand had the property of melting under high temperature, and he had just seen Kingsley perform fire release, he did not expect that a guy from the Hidden Mist village and a member of the Kaguya clan could use such a powerful fire release, so powerful that it could easily melt his Iron Sand. However, his layout has been completed at this time. All previous attacks are actually paving the way for his next move. At this time, the entire battlefield has been covered with enough sand iron, and the prerequisites for the technique have been prepared. Tisha was full of confidence in the ultimate move he was about to perform. He firmly believed that Kingxi would never be able to escape under his combination of attacks. He touched the ground with both hands, and chakra continued to flow into the ground. As his mind moved, countless iron sands began to surge wildly, like a surging torrent, sweeping towards Kingxi. Magnetic style, iron sand flow. The ground began to sink, and endless iron sand rolled across the battlefield like waves. Kingxi kept moving around the battlefield, dodging the waves of iron sand that swept towards him one after another, while constantly thinking of countermeasures. Attacks launched from a distance would give the iron sand room to react, so he needed to shorten the distance between himself and the iron sand. Seeing that the ninjutsu was successfully launched, Tisha flapped his wings again and flew into the sky. At the same time, he put his hands together, and destructive chakra waves continued to spread around. Tisha's mouth curled up, damn Kirigakure ninja. Nishiyuki. Magnetic style, sand iron realm technique. Tisha released a large amount of magnetic chakra in one breath. The magnetic force in the vicinity increased rapidly under its influence, and then continued to spread around, soon covering the battlefield. The iron sand torrent just now has turned this place into a sea of iron sand. A large amount of iron sand continues to float up from the ground, eventually forming iron sand creations of various shapes and sizes. If a person with trypophobia sees these densely packed iron sand creations, he will probably die on the spot. Under the control of the iron sand, various forms of iron sand were spike-shaped and began to shoot from the air to the ground, covering a very large area. The trajectory of the shooting was completely random and irregular, so it was difficult to see the direction clearly. However, with the powerful insight provided by the pure eye, Kingxi was able to constantly dodge in the sand-iron realm, avoiding attack after attack as if he were passing through flowers and falling leaves. Every attacking iron spike was like a deadly poisonous snake, whizzing past Kingxi, but Kingxi relied on his keen insight, amazing reaction speed and agile body to avoid them time and time again, and his steps were not disordered at all. Kingxi moved like a ghost in the home field created by iron sand, skillfully avoiding all of iron sand's attacks, and he was still constantly looking for opportunities to attack iron sand. However, although Kingxi was not hit by the attack from the iron sand realm, his armor was inevitably rubbed by the iron sand with strong magnetic force while he was dodging, and then the magnetic chakra of the iron sand quickly invaded the armor. At this moment, Tisha finally revealed a smile that showed he was confident of victory and that everything was under control. Let's see how you can hide now. Then, the surging magnetic chakra in his body burst out again. The powerful magnetic chakra and the magnetic iron sand on Kingxi's armor produced a strong resonance, and the iron sand spikes in the air that had not yet been fired suddenly seemed to be equipped with positioning navigation, and began to shoot at Kingxi in a hurry. At this time, under the mutual attraction of magnets, Kingxi had no chance to escape at all. Young name Vigana. At the moment before the attack came, Kingxi once again activated the pupil technique of his left eye to shrink himself. Although the magnetic positioning was still on his body, at this moment, Kingxi, who was the target, suddenly shrank, causing Tisha's attack to fail again. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Tisha's pupils shrank in mid-air. Although he could not see Kingxi's figure, the armor on Kingxi's body had his magnetic chakra. He could sense that Kingxi's position had not changed. Chapter 87. When Kingxi appeared again, the armor with metal parts on his body had been taken off, revealing the white ninja shirt underneath. Tisha, who was determined not to be rid of Jibazi, stared at Kingxi closely. At this moment, he finally noticed that Kingxi's eyes under the mask were different from those of ordinary Hyuga clan members. Is this some kind of pupil technique? Tisha began to wonder in his heart. This seemed to be completely different from what he had thought. The Kirigakure Enbu, who he initially identified as the Kagaya clan, gave him surprises again and again, completely overturning his perception of the Kagaya clan. How great it would be if this person was from their sand village. Ninja from the hidden mist, tell me your name. I recognize you in the name of the Kazekage. Tisha said after several attacks failed to produce any effect. Ha! Ching Si sneered, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the hidden mist, Ching Si. At the same time, several other battlefields also fell into a stalemate. Hanzo and Cho, the old enemies, continued their fateful duel. After Cho cracked his salamander poison, Hanzo no longer had that fatal suppression power over Cho and the entire battlefield. Although Hanzo's combat power was above Cho, for a puppeteer who was determined to focus all his attention on defense and could even be said to be the strongest puppeteer in the current ninja world, Hanzo did not have the overwhelming strength to kill Cho. Elsewhere, Zigwashin Pufferfish and Sato Cage teamed up to suppress Raza, who also used magnetic escape. At this time, Raza was only 16 years old. Although he used magnetic escape and gold sand very well, he was only an elite jonin close to the level of Cage. Regardless of strength, if we only talk about bloodline, he still has a long way to go in developing magnetic escape compared to his teacher, the third Kazekage Tetsusa. Under the various water and lightning ninjutsu of Zigwashin Puffer and Sato Cage, Luo Sha was beaten to a pulp and looked very embarrassed. Unlike his teacher, the third Kazekage Iron Sand, although Luo Sha inherited the use of magnetic ninjutsu, he did not focus on the development of magnetic force and magnetism. He was good at using magnetic ninjutsu to control the dense gold sand. Luo Sha's most common way of fighting was to use a large amount of high-density gold sand to perform various large-scale ninjutsu to win by quantity. But this time he met an opponent, the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish, whose chakra was already huge, coupled with the big sword Samehada, and the environment of the rain country was suitable for the use of water jutsu. The Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish could use all kinds of large-scale water jutsu at will. In addition, there was another person behind him who kept using the Thunder Blade Fang to cooperate with the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish's water jutsu to form various combination ninjutsu. This set of indiscriminate combination punches made Raza extremely frustrated. The last place was where 4 of the 7 were besieging Ebizo. The long sword, Needle, was flying all over the battlefield under the control of Kurishan Kushimaru, restraining Ebizo while occasionally launching sneak attacks on other sand ninjas fighting nearby. Mori Shinpeika's explosive sword, Spray, opened and closed, and with the extremely efficient blunt sword, Kabukari, in the hands of Togasano Baito, the two of them had killed Ebizo's 5 puppets one after another. If it weren't for the fact that Ebizo had a wealthy family and carried a large number of spare puppets with him, and if it weren't for the fact that he had decent strength himself, after all, a weaker cage is still a cage, he might have been beheaded with a beheading sword by Biwajozo, who was constantly looking for an opportunity to strike. For a moment, with the 4 people's perfect tacit cooperation, Ebizo was beaten and overwhelmed, and he had no energy to help other sand ninjas like he had in the previous battles with the rain ninjas. The perspective returns to Kingsley. After hearing Kyoji's answer, information about the 7 ninja swordsmen quickly emerged in Tisha's mind. Although the Sand Village's intelligence system obtained information that an elite force called the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist Village had been established last year, there has been no public record of the missions carried out by this force since its establishment. They can only roughly confirm that these 7 people are at least at the level of Jonin based on the intelligence sent back by spies lurking in the Hidden Mist Village. Wow, this isn't even the strength of a Jonin. He can fight against me, the Kazekage, without losing at all. He has completely reached the level of a cage. Tisha thought to himself. For a moment, all kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Then he looked around at the other battlefields around him and saw that the other people from Kirigakure also showed extremely strong strength. He couldn't help but feel sad. It seems that the other 6 people also belong to the 7 ninja swordsmen. In addition to the old guy, the third Mizu Cage, Kirigakure has another extraordinary figure. Why don't we have a few such talents in Sand Village? It seems that we have to send more spies to the Hidden Mist Village. We still know too little about the village. Tisha lamented in his heart again. However, since we have met him, let's see if we can keep him. The ninja world does not allow the existence of a ninja more powerful than me. Tisha's eyes became firm. The usual flattery in the village and the ability to easily suppress the one-tailed Shikaku made him misjudge his own strength. So for the sake of Sand Village, since Kirigakure has interfered in their war with Omegakure, he will risk getting injured to kill this rising star of Kirigakure. Chapter 88. Tisha was determined, with a strong murderous look in his eyes, and the surrounding iron sand began to tremble under his influence. Tisha in midair formed seals with his hands, and the sand and iron realm technique had created a world filled with sand and iron. This place had completely become the home ground of the 3rd generation Kazekage Tisha. Magnetic style, sand iron layer burial seal. With the advantage of the terrain just created, Tisha's ninjutsu was activated instantly. After many battles with Shikaku, Tisha had already learned how to mix the effect of the sealing technique into his ninjutsu. In the previous battle, although he did not know the effect of Kingsley's eye technique, through the perception of magnetic escape, Tisha could determine that Kingsley, who performed the eye technique, did not move. Then, the only way is to use the sand iron layer burial seal to seal the entire area, leaving him nowhere to escape. Kyoji used his pure eye to see through Tessa's chakra flow, and knew that he was going to use some powerful ninjutsu, but Tessa's technique was launched too quickly, leaving Kyoji no time to use Takamaji Ehara to transfer. Kingxi was caught off guard and was directly wrapped by layers of iron sand. In the blink of an eye, a huge iron sand pyramid glowing with black light was formed. The information given in the Book of Formations shows that the Sand Layer Great Burial Seal and the Sand Layer Great Burial are the same ninjutsu, except that the Sand Layer Great Burial Seal adds a sealing effect on the basis of the Sand Layer Great Burial. The Sand Layer Great Burial Seal is a sealing technique used by the 5th Kazekage Gaara and the One-Tail Shikaku in the 4th World War. This technique is made up of Shikaku's sand body and the Cursed Seal pattern, and finally formed a huge sand pyramid. Ha 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 ha! I am still more skilled. Seeing that Kingxi was successfully trapped by his technique, Tisha couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then the sand dispersed and Shinoi fell back to the ground, and he clenched his right hand fiercely in front of him. Sealing alone is not enough. The enraged 3rd Kazekage Tisha also wants to curb the development of Kirigakure. He wants to make sure that CG will never appear in the ninja world again. Magnetic style, iron sand funeral. Chakra surged, and the iron sand pyramid quickly collapsed inwards under the control of the iron sand. The endless pressure was about to crush Kingxi to death. The iron sand's chakra surged like a raging torrent, as if it was going to submerge the entire battlefield. The pyramid made of iron sand collapsed inward at an alarming speed under the control of the iron sand. The endless pressure was about to squeeze Ching Si, who was surrounded by iron sand, into a meat pie. I see. Is this the power that carries the name of Shadow? At the last moment before being sealed, Kingxi covered his body with a large amount of chakra to avoid being directly controlled. Kingxi had to admit at this time that he had underestimated the 3rd Kazekage Tisha. After the awakening of the pure eye and the acquisition of extremely powerful pupil technique, Kingxi did look down on the weakest of the 5 kage, but it was not too late to wake up now. Bone spurs kept bursting out from all over Kingxi's body, and the clothes on his upper body were directly torn to pieces by the bone spurs. Shake bone pulse dance of Karamatsu. Then Kingxi pushed out all the bones in his upper body at once to resist the iron sand around him, propping up the iron sand and making a small space for himself. The bone spurs temporarily resisted the squeezing force of the iron sand, and Kingxi's chakra burst out instantly, and his hands formed the SI seal. Corpse vein dance of the early ferns. Countless sharp bone spurs grew wildly under the urging of Kingxi's chakra, like mushrooms after rain. In just a breath, the originally extremely solid iron sand seal was completely broken. Outside the huge pyramid formed by the sand iron, white bone spurs began to emerge everywhere. In the blink of an eye, a strange forest made of bones suddenly appeared on the sand iron, and it was spreading to the surroundings at a very fast speed. Tisha witnessed all this happening in front of him. His face became very gloomy and ugly. He never expected that this move he used could not trap Kingxi. However, he did not hesitate too much, but made a quick decision to retreat quickly. Because he knew very well that if he continued to stay where he was, he would not only be affected by the aftermath of the early warbler dance, but he might also be attacked by CG. After all, the Sand Village had relatively detailed information about the corpse veins of the Kagaya clan, and as the 3rd Kazekage, Tisha had encountered the strong men of the Kagaya clan in the last Ninja World War, and he knew the horror of the early warbler dance. At this moment, a dark white bone spur suddenly broke out of the ground not far in front of Tisha and stabbed towards him quickly. At the same time, Kingxi's figure also appeared quietly on the top of the bone spur like a ghost, and his right hand was already wrapped by the huge bone drill. Corpse vein, dance of the wire flower. Flower. Chapter 89. Tisha was shocked. The power of Kingxi's early warbler dance was much stronger than what he had seen in the last Ninja World War, and the coverage range was beyond imagination. Looking at the attacking Kingxi, Tisha retreated quickly while making empty gripping movements with both hands alternately. As he moved, balls of iron sand emerged one after another, forming a solid line of defense, trying to stop Kingxi's advance and buy himself enough time to use the iron sand wings to fly into the air. At this moment, Tisha regretted deeply. He should not have fallen back to the ground. He was too confident just now and thought that Kingxi had been dealt with by him. However, facts proved that he was extremely wrong. Kingxi turned his body sideways and stretched out his right arm forward. The iron wire wrapped around his arm spun rapidly like a whirlwind. The blocking iron sand was shattered one after another with one blow. Kingxi's steps were not slowed down at all. Kingxi rushed straight towards the iron sand with an unparalleled momentum. At the same time, Kingxie's right eye began to gather powerful pupil power, and the sky blue pure eye flickered slightly. Takamagahara. 4 big boxes appeared out of nowhere on the path that Tisha had to take to retreat, blocking his way back. With a loud bang, the big boxes fell heavily to the ground, and the entire ground began to tremble. Huge black cubes, each with a diameter of more than 10 meters, stood there, emitting an invisible pressure. Tisha's face turned very ugly. He knew that he had nowhere to retreat now. In this situation, he could only stop, stand in place and start to form seals. Magnetic escape sand iron wall. Magnetic release, sand iron wings. Under his command, the iron sand surged like a tide and quickly gathered in front of him into a thick and solid iron sand wall. Tisha thought to himself that if he rashly used the sand iron wings directly at this moment, then before the sand iron wings were fully condensed, Kingxie, who would be unable to stop him, would most likely kill him with one blow. Although the sand iron wall could not withstand the penetrating force of the extremely hard corpse bone vein, it was enough to buy itself precious time to reunite the sand iron wings. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Tisha decided to first use the sand iron wall to build a defense to block for a while, and then use the sand iron wing to take off. The sand iron wall only held out for a moment under the thrusts of the iron wire flower before it was directly broken through. Kingxie and Tisha, who had broken through the sand iron wall's defense, were already within reach. But at this critical moment, the iron sand iron wing finally took shape. Seeing that Tisha was about to take off into the air again, Kingxie could not let him go so easily. He poked Tisha with the bone drill without hesitation. Although Tisha successfully used the sand iron wings and successfully took off, he did not completely avoid Kingxie's iron wire flower dance. The bone drill grazed his left thigh, taking away a handful of flesh and blood. Tisha rose into the air, with blood dripping from his left leg. Even though he had used magnetic chakra to seal the wound in time and suppress the blood flow, the wound was too big, and Tisha was unable to completely control the injury. Tisk! Ching Si spat. This third Kazekage really had no moral principles and flew up at any time. Ching Si, who had no anti-air ability, was extremely uncomfortable at this time. Although Ching Si could use wind escape to briefly lift himself into the air, he had not practiced flying specifically, and was not very skilled in using it, nor could he apply it in combat. It seems that we need to put the ability to master air combat on the agenda as soon as possible. There is also an old man named the third Otsutsuki in Kirigakure who can fly as well. Kingxie thought to himself, but let's finish this battle first. Kingxie looked at the seriously injured third Kazekage Tisha in the air and said calmly, Feng Ying, do you want to continue? Your injuries are not light. Hearing Kingxie's words with a slightly victorious tone, Tisha couldn't hold back his pride. How could he, who was known as the strongest Kazekage, be defeated by a young brat? I really should bring that old monk Fenfu along. In the next war, I must mobilize the Jinchuriki. This thought suddenly popped up in Tisha's mind. But it was no use regretting now. He just had to get through this hurdle first. Although he was very angry about Kingxie's words, he also knew that originally he and Kingxie were evenly matched and he was even slightly at a disadvantage. Now that he was seriously injured, he should not be able to beat Kingxie. But as the Kazekage, how could he admit defeat so easily? He still wanted to struggle a little longer to see if there was any chance of a turnaround and whether other sand ninjas could come to support him. Tisha did not say anything, but responded to Kingxie with actions. Tisha put his hands together and activated the magnetic escape technique again. Under the influence of magnetic force, the iron sand quickly rose into the air, forming several gyroscope-shaped creations, which then began to spin at a high speed. Magnetic Style, Sand Iron Beyblade. Chapter 90. The high-speed rotating iron sand gyroscope aimed at Kingxie's position from the air and bombarded it at high speed. Iron sand was now determined to delay time in the air. He was ready to keep attacking Kingxie in the air. It didn't matter whether he could hit him or not. Kingxie didn't have the ability to fly anyway, so he was no threat to him at all. He just had to beware of the huge black cube that suddenly appeared. Looking up at Tisha in the air, Kingxie saw that he had no intention of stopping, so he thought, since you don't want the face I give you, I have no choice but to beat you until you surrender. With one hand forming a seal in front of his chest and activating the instant body movement technique, Kingxie easily dodged Tisha's rather rough attack. Then, before Tisha launched the next round of attack, Kingxie used the eye technique Takamagahara to summon the last remaining Okashura in the Takamagahara space again. However, This Okashira was not intended to attack Tisha, but only to provide Kingxi with a coordinate for spatial movement. Daxiation appeared in the air, and before it fell to the ground, Kingxi used Takamagahara to teleport himself over. Using Daxiation as a springboard, Kingxi quickly approached Tisha in the air. Although he couldn't stay in the air for a long time, he could still easily stay in the air for a short moment, and this short time was enough for Kingxi to cause damage to Tisha. At the same time, on another battlefield. After a hard fight, Raza's chakra was almost exhausted by Zigwashan Pufferfish and Sato Cage. Since the war began, both sides have been fighting non-stop with large-scale ninjutsu. Zigwashan Pufferfish and Sato Cage are fine. The former has a huge chakra, and is assisted by the big sword Samehata. The latter's lightning escape is mostly used through the Thunder Sword ninjutsu, and the consumption is much smaller than normal. But Raza was not so good. The repeated large-scale magnetic style, gold sand consumed his chakra at a very fast rate. But he had no other choice. After all, that was his fighting style. So Raza, who had no advantage in terms of techniques, had already slipped to the brink of defeat. Water Release, Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Thunder Sword Ninjutsu, Thunder Dragon Tornado. A water dragon and a thunder dragon entangled with each other in the air, and finally merged into one, forming a ferocious water dragon with electric light all over its body. Combined Ninjutsu, Thunder Water Dragon Bullet. Here we go again. Luo Sha couldn't help but complain. He had been suppressed by the two of them from beginning to end. The various combinations of water and lightning ninjutsu made him extremely annoyed. He could only mechanically control Shajin to fight against them continuously. It could be said that he had no combat experience at all. Luo Sha fell back to the ground from the air, half knelt on one knee, slapped the ground heavily with both hands, and magnetic chakra surged wildly. Magnetic style, golden sand waves. A large amount of gold sand began to gather, and under Luo Sha's control, it rose from the ground and collided with the incoming thunder and water dragon bomb. On the battlefield where the other people were, Ebizo had been firmly suppressed by the joint efforts of the four people. He had been passively defending and taking beatings, with almost no power to fight back. Fortunately, the puppeteer's chakra consumption was not as high as that of a ninjutsu-type ninja, otherwise his chakra might have been exhausted long ago. The battlefield was now filled with broken puppets and puppet fragments. Water Release, Kirigakure Jutsu. Biwajozo, who had been slacking off for a long time, finally waited until Ebizo showed signs of fatigue, so he immediately covered the battlefield with the mist hiding technique, and then quietly moved towards Ebizo, using the silent killing technique that he had already mastered. Seeing Biwajozang using the mist concealment technique, the other three instantly understood his idea, so the three of them also used the mist concealment technique tacitly, increasing the density of the fog on the battlefield and creating favorable opportunities for Biwajozang. When he saw the fog appear, Ebizo knew something was wrong and immediately used wind escape to try to blow away the fog. However, unexpectedly, this was not the mist hidden technique performed by Biwajozu alone, but by four senior ninjas working together. Ebizo's wind style worked, but it also had no effect at all. The fog was only blown away for a moment, and the next moment, more fog surged up, covering the entire battlefield again. At this time, Biwajozo had quietly bypassed the two puppets used for guarding the periphery and was very close to Ebizo's position. Water Escape Water Body. Biwajozang formed seals and summoned 3 water clones. Ebizo could control a total of 5 puppets at the same time, and at this time he had 3 puppets beside him to protect the puppeteer himself. Ebizo already had a premonition at this time, and was about to control the 2 puppets on the periphery to return to defense, but it was too late. Broken Sword Ninja Technique, Decapitation. Biwajozo has already taken action, and his 3 shadow clones simultaneously chopped hard at the 3 puppets around Ebizo. Ebizo waved his 5 fingers repeatedly, controlling the 3 puppets to block Biwajozo's slashing attack. It's not over yet. Now you have no puppet to defend yourself. Another Biwajozo jumped high up, holding a beheading sword, and chopped it down from the air at Ebizo, who was protected by the puppet in the middle. Oh no! Ebizo's mind was greatly shaken. The mist hidden technique performed by the 4 people together was of extremely high intensity. Therefore, Ebizo's perception was suppressed to an extremely low level, and he did not notice Biwajozo's tricks at all. Ninjutsu, Puppet Substitution Technique. It must be said that Ebizo is indeed a veteran cage. Although his strength can only be said to be relatively weak, he still has a lot of combat experience. At the last moment before being slashed, Ebizo activated the substitution technique in time and used the puppet to bear the fatal blow, but this also consumed the last useful puppet he carried. The thick fog dissipated, and Biwajozo had retreated back and reunited with the other 3 teammates. Ebizo climbed up from the ground in a panic. Although he escaped the disaster, he was still covered in dirt by Biwajozo. Cough, cough cough, cough cough cough. I was careless. I didn't dodge. You young man have no martial ethics. Come, cheat. Come, sneak attack. My 44-year-old comrade. Ebizo said sarcastically. He was very unhappy at being suppressed by 4 young ninjas. Fortunately, Kingxi was not on this battlefield, otherwise he would have to ask Ebizo if he knew how to receive, transform, and send. Young name Vigana. Kingxi, who appeared behind Tisha, immediately used the pupil technique to shrink himself. The large box made of yin-yang escape could block Tisha's perception and make him unable to detect him, but Kingxi couldn't block himself, so he could only use the pupil technique to make Tisha able to sense him but not see him. In this way, Tisha would most likely not prepare defensive ninjutsu in advance like he could if he could see himself, and he could catch him off guard. The distance is enough. Kingxi, who was already close to Tisha, suddenly restored his original size and then launched the eye technique Takamaji Hara again. Several yin-yang black sticks suddenly appeared and pierced directly into various parts of Tisha's body. Tisha was stunned when he was suddenly attacked. Tisha, who had no information about Kingxi's eye technique, had no idea where Kingxi came from to attack him. Tisha, who was injured even more, let out a wail and fell straight down from the air. The yin-yang release black stick had the function of absorbing chakra and sealing acupuncture points, causing disorder in the flow of chakra. With several black sticks inserted into his body, Tisha couldn't control his body at all. If he hadn't been covered with a layer of iron sand all over his body, he might have been the first kage in the ninja world to die from falling. Boom! With a loud bang, the iron sand fell to the ground and created a deep pit. Kazekage, you lost. Kingxi walked forward and looked down at Tisha and said calmly, his tone calm and without any joy of defeating one of the 5 kage.